Martial God Calendar, year 2216. The supreme land of the heavenly martial continent, martial domain. Black gales roared madly, the sky torn open with massive wounds, hideously terrifying. Black void rifts spat and flickered, like primordial beasts never knowing fatigue, devouring all they could. This was one of the 7 forbidden zones of the heavenly martial continent, the Death Canyon located in the martial domain. Within Death Canyon, horrifying void storms raged perpetually, never ceasing. For tens of thousands of years, they had devoured the lives of countless powerful figures. It was like a meat grinder, butchering all life that entered. This place was rarely visited. Even the most confident experts wouldn't dare descend here. The vast void storm was enough to easily tear a 9 heavens martial emperor into pieces. Why? Shangguan Xie, Feng Xiaoyu, why do you betray me? Qin Chen, covered in blood, stood on the cliff before Death Canyon, his expression furious as he looked at the man and woman before him. His eyes were filled with endless resentment and rage, his heart stabbed with pain. Qin Chen, a generation of legends on the heavenly martial continent, a 9th-grade emperor-level alchemist, an 8th-level royal-level bloodline master, an 8th-level martial emperor. He, an orphan since childhood, possessed a useless meridian, unable to cultivate. Yet, he forcibly shattered this constraint, starting as a bloodline master, defying fate, relying on the power of a useless bloodline to ascend to the pinnacle, forging a path never before seen, becoming the #1 person throughout the ages. At 26, Qin Chen ventured alone into Heavenly Array Mountain, traversing 81 9th-level Grand Arrays in 49 days, becoming the only formation master in 1,000 years to pass through Heavenly Array Mountain. At 28, he broke through to become a 9th-grade Emperor-level alchemist, holding the honorary elder position in the Continental Alchemist Hall. At 30, with the attainment of an 8th-level Royal-level Bloodline Master, he consecutively challenged the top 10 Bloodline Masters of the Bloodline Tower, undefeated, his name shaking the continent. Becoming the continent's supreme legend. He had a confidant, named Shangguan Xie, hailed as the #1 beauty of the continent. For 10 years, they shared life and death. Qin Chen devoted everything, allowing Shangguan Xia's cultivation to advance by leaps and bounds, becoming a 9 heavens martial emperor, achieving a legendary tale on the continent. He had a brother, named Feng Xiaoyu. For 10 years, they showed utter devotion. Qin Chen devoted everything, helping him establish a vast empire, establishing the Xuanyuan Empire that shook the continent. But just as he helped his confidant and friend stand at the peak of the continent, the two of them actually betrayed him together. That day, in his sleep, Shangguan Xie suddenly launched a deadly attack, using the emperor weapon he personally refined to stab into Qin Chen's body. At the same time, Feng Xiaoyu, who had been lying in ambush, directly stormed into his palace, making a forceful move. 2 great 9 heavens martial emperor experts launched a deadly attack on him, an 8th-level martial emperor. Qin Chen, caught off guard, was seriously injured, rushing out of the palace and fleeing for 3 days and 3 nights. But in the end, he was still hunted down by the two to Death Canyon. At this time, Qin Chen was already exhausted, his meridians shattered, on the verge of death, no longer having the strength to fight. But he didn't understand why these two people, whom he regarded as his closest, would actually join forces to betray him. Why? Shangguan Xie, with a face of exquisite beauty, like a fairy in a painting, faced Qin Chen's unwilling inquiry, giggling as she snuggled into Feng Xiaoyu's arms, while Feng Xiaoyu's large hand directly stroked Shangguan Xia's waist. Qin Chen widened his eyes, revealing an unbelievable expression. Under the shock of his mind, he suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood, hoarsely saying, "You two actually." Shangguan Xie smiled mockingly, looking at Qin Chen pathetically, sneering, "Before I met you, Xiaoyu and I were already in love. The reason I was with you was just to use you. Did you think I truly liked you? Ha ha ha, you're wrong." Shangguan Xie looked at Qin Chen venomously. "Every time I was with you, I felt disgusted. If it weren't because you could bring benefits to Xiaoyu and me, I wouldn't bother to feign affection with you. Over these 10 years, your every move has been within Xiaoyu and my plans. These years, You were obsessed with cultivation and alchemy, often secluding yourself, giving Xiaoyu and me many opportunities to be together. We had already agreed that when we become 9 heavens martial emperors, it would be the day your life ends. Finally, with your help, I became a 9 heavens martial emperor, and Xiaoyu established the Xuanyuan Empire. We can finally be together openly. This is why. Shangguan Xie laughed heartily, her laughter filled with unrestrained arrogance, venomous coldness, so different from the gentle and virtuous Shangguan Xie that Qin Chen knew. Qin Chen's face was ashen. 10 years of time, this woman meticulously planned, actually just to get close to him. How ridiculous that he was completely unaware, only knowing to give his sincere heart. But he never expected that these 10 years of red sleeves adding fragrance were just a scam. Qin Chen's heart felt like 10,000 arrows piercing through it. Even more, it was hatred. That familiar face was so strange at this moment, even that exquisite beauty had become ugly and unbearable. Good brother, now you know why, right? Feng Xiaoyu's mouth rose, his smile treacherous. To achieve this goal, I endured for 10 years, not hesitating to offer my woman to you. Every time I saw you and her entangled together, I vowed that when the time was ripe, I would definitely kill you, make you lose everything, and your wealth, status, and woman would all be mine. Fortunately, all of this is over. In Feng Xiaoyu's eyes, unconcealed and naked killing intent surged. He stared at the storage bracelet on Qin Chen's right wrist, a greedy look on his face, and sneered triumphantly, "Don't worry, after you die, I will receive everything you have, especially that thing you obtained in the Forbidden Ground, and also, your woman." Feng Xiaoyu smiled sinisterly, his slender hand directly caressing Shangguan Xia's ample buttocks. This pair of adulterous partners then began to giggle in front of Qin Chen. Qin Chen's eyes were icy cold, and he gave a desolate smile. The two people he regarded as his closest kin had been deceiving him all along, taking advantage of his closed-door cultivation to devour everything he had. How laughable that he was completely unaware. That was how he ended up in such a state. Qin Chen laughed. He laughed at this despicable and shameless couple. He also laughed at his own foolishness and idiocy. As he laughed, 2 lines of bloody tears slid down from the corners of his eyes. He slowly stood up, his eyes filled with hatred, staring fiercely at the 2 people in front of him. There is no greater sorrow than a dead heart. He hated them, and if he had the chance, he would definitely kill them. But there was no longer a chance. Qin Chen looked at the raging spatial rifts behind him, and in the astonished and furious gazes of that adulterous couple, he jumped up and was instantly swallowed by the endless spatial rifts. Before he died, Qin Chen's eyes were icy cold, and a sneer hung on the corner of his lips. "Want my things. In your next life." The wind howled, and the void shattered. On the cliff, only the sounds of Feng Xiaoyu and Shangguan Xia's astonished and furious roars echoed for a long time. Tianwu Continent, Darky Kingdom, Dingwu Royal Mansion. Shangguan Xie, Feng Xiaoyu, you despicable couple, how I hate you. A youth suddenly woke up with a start from a gilded bed, sitting up in anger. His eyes were wide with rage, his pupils like cold stars, from which burst a ray of unforgettable hatred, his whole body drenched in cold sweat. On the bed, the youth's hands were clenched tightly, allowing his fingernails to dig deep into his palms, causing excruciating pain, yet he felt nothing. After a long while, he came back to his senses, staring blankly at the antique bed and eaves in front of him, speechless and dazed. What was going on? Hadn't he already died? A sharp pain suddenly came from Qin Chen's mind, causing him to roar out in pain. Along with the pain came a completely new set of memories. He had actually been reborn. Immediately, Qin Chen suddenly opened his eyes. After understanding what had happened, even this top expert of the continent was filled with disbelief. In his memory, it was now the 2516th year of the martial god calendar, a full 300 years since his previous life when he had fallen. 300 years of time, the world had changed, and the situation had shifted. The former Xuanyuan Empire, under Feng Xiaoyu's expansion, had become the #1 dynasty on the continent, or inspiring the world, and he was given the title of Xuanyuan the Great. And the former Shangguan Xie had established the Misty Palace, with the title of Lingbo Empress, enjoying the admiration of hundreds of millions of people. Relying on the divine weapons and pills left by Qin Chen, the two had become the supreme existences on the continent, their power shaking the world. With a stomp of their feet, the entire continent would tremble. And Qin Chen had been reborn in this remote small country on the continent. Heaven has allowed me to live another life. Shangguan Xie, Feng Xiaoyu, you wait. I, Qin Chen, am back. Your nightmare is about to begin. One day, I, Qin Chen, will personally step onto the martial domain and reclaim everything. Qin Chen clenched his fists, and in this simple and wealthy room, he swore to the heavens. That intense killing intent transformed into an invisible whirlwind in the air above the room, lingering for a long time. Chenair. Suddenly, with a creak, the door opened, and a beautiful woman wearing a clean robe and a jade hairpin walked in anxiously. Seeing Qin Chen, who had awakened on the bed, a hint of joy suddenly appeared in her anxious eyes. That's great, Chenair, you're finally awake. Mother was so worried. Tears welled up on the long eyelashes of the beautiful woman, and she hugged Qin Chen tightly, sobbing softly, but her crying was filled with joy. The warm embrace enveloped Qin Chen, and the originally hateful heart of the awakened Qin Chen inexplicably felt a trace of warmth. The beautiful woman's name was Qin Yuqi, the daughter of Dingwu King of Darky Kingdom, and also Qin Chen's mother. The original owner of this body was also called Qin Chen. Because of a dispute with someone at the Tianxing Academy in the royal capital, he fell off the martial arts stage, hit his head, and fell into a coma for 3 days and 3 nights before dying. In the end, Qin Chen's soul from 300 years ago accidentally occupied his body, giving him a second life. Chenair, you've been in a coma for 3 days and 3 nights, scaring Mother to death. Mother will never allow you to be so reckless again in the future, do you hear? If you're gone, how will Mother live alone in the future? The beautiful woman stroked Qin Chen's thin cheeks, her beautiful eyes revealing earnest concern. Looking at the beautiful woman, Qin Chen felt an unprecedented emotion in his soul. Qin Chen in his previous life was just an orphan. He never thought that heaven would give him another life and actually give him a mother. In the original memories of this body, his mother, Qin Yuqi, treated him extremely well, and could be said to be meticulous. The relationship between mother and son was very harmonious. After Qin Chen was reborn, his soul merged with the soul of the original body, and he naturally possessed all the emotions of the original body. Looking at the worried and weeping beautiful woman in front of him, Qin Chen felt a burst of excitement in his heart, and blurted out, "Mother, your child will never be reckless again and make Mother worry." After saying these words, Qin Chen felt as if a stone had been lifted from his heart, and his soul felt relaxed. The original trace of restraint had also completely disappeared. Qin Chen knew that this was the consciousness of the original Qin Chen, and after knowing his thoughts, it had completely dissipated. From now on, only one consciousness remained in this body, and that was him, Qin Chen. That's good. The beautiful woman looked at Qin Chen with a gentle expression, her eyes seemingly filled only with her son. Chenair, tell Mother, how did you end up in a duel with the young master of the Marquis of Weiqi's family? Did someone deliberately frame you? Qin Yuqi frowned as she looked at Qin Chen, her face filled with worry. No, it was my own decision to duel him, Qin Chen said, lowering his head. His gaze, however, was very cold. The truth was that Wei Zhen had insulted him in the academy, calling him a bastard and his mother a slut, and he had angrily gone on stage to duel him. Now it seemed that this was a conspiracy against him. Because as soon as Wei Zhen went on stage, he used a deadly move. If he told his mother the truth, with her personality, she would definitely fight the Marquis of Weiqi's family to the death, but now his mother's situation was also very difficult. When Qin Yuqi was young, she was known as the #1 beauty of the Great Qi Kingdom, and was secretly admired by countless princes and nobles in the royal capital. The matchmakers who came to propose marriage broke down the threshold with gifts. Even the current Holy Emperor had heard of Qin Yuqi's beauty and intended to take her as a concubine. But at this time, Qin Yuqi suddenly ran away from home, traveled the world, and disappeared from everyone's sight. 3 years later, Qin Yuqi returned, bringing with her the newborn Qin Chen, and returned to the Qin family. This matter caused a sensation throughout the royal capital. Having a child out of wedlock was an extremely taboo and shameful thing throughout the entire Tianwu Continent, considered a violation of feminine virtue, and in some remote and uncivilized areas, it would even lead to being drowned in a pig cage. At that time, the Qin family was so angry that they almost beat Qin Yuqi to death, but it was King Dingwu Qin Beishan, Qin Chen's maternal grandfather, who overruled all objections and took in Qin Yuqi and Qin Chen in the name of the Qin family's bloodline. However, everyone in the Dingwu king's mansion looked at Qin Yuqi and Qin Chen with cold eyes, believing that Qin Yuqi was a disgrace to the entire Qin family. Therefore, Qin Yuqi's life in the Qin family was very difficult. Otherwise, Qin Chen would not have been unconscious for 3 days and 3 nights without any doctors coming to check on him. Chen, although you didn't awaken your bloodline this time, it doesn't matter, there will be opportunities in the future. Don't be impulsive and fight with others. Even if you can't become a strong person, it doesn't matter, mother will always protect you. Qin Yuqi looked at the weak Qin Chen on the bed and sighed slightly, her nose stinging again. With Chen's strong-willed personality, if he can't resolve this knot in his heart, I'm afraid something will happen in the future. Didn't awaken bloodline. Qin Chen instantly understood some of the situation by merging the memories of this body. It turned out that the owner of this body had good martial arts talent and was admitted to the Tianxing Academy, the #1 academy in the Great Qi Kingdom, with excellent grades. It was just that in the academy's several bloodline awakening ceremonies, he had failed to awaken his bloodline. A few days ago, the academy conducted another bloodline awakening for the students, and Qin Chen still did not awaken his bloodline. In the Tianwu Continent, bloodlines are paramount. Without awakening a bloodline, one cannot become a true strong person. Previously, after learning this news, the owner of this body was deeply affected. He was determined to become stronger in order to change his and his mother's situation in the royal mansion, but he did not expect that God would play such a joke on him. Under the blow, he was depressed, muddle-headed, and unhappy every day. That was why Qin Yuqi thought that the reason Qin Chen dueled with Wei Zhen was because he didn't awaken his bloodline and was in a bad mood. Mother, don't worry, such a small setback won't break me down. Qin Chen felt Qin Yuqi's concern, his gaze softened, and he smiled slightly. He was not comforting Qin Yuqi. Not awakening a bloodline was nothing to him, the 8th order bloodline emperor master of his previous life. Qin Chen's bright smile warmed Qin Yuqi's heart, and she said reassuringly, in that case, mother is relieved. Qin Yuqi was just about to say something when suddenly, bang, bang, bang. Someone was knocking on the door, and the sound was very loud, almost kicking it with their feet. Qin Yuqi hurriedly opened the door. A maid wearing a silver mink jacket stepped into the room. Miss, why did it take so long to open the door? The maid said dissatisfied. Although she called her miss, she didn't show any respect at all. Yanzi, Chen just woke up, and his body is still very weak. Keep your voice down a little and don't disturb Chen, Qin Yuqi said. Hearing this, Yanzi glanced at Qin Chen on the bed in surprise, a mocking smile appearing on the corner of her mouth. So young Master Chen is awake, that's really congratulations. She said congratulations, but there was no smile on her face, her eyes cold, as if Qin Chen owed her money. This maid's name was Yanzi, and she was one of the personal maids of Qin Chen's maternal aunt, Madame Zhao. The Qin family was a family of loyal martyrs. For generations, their ancestors had been military generals, fighting on the battlefield for the Great Qi Kingdom and making illustrious achievements. By the time of Qin Chen's maternal grandfather, Qin Beishan, their power reached its peak, and he was conferred the title of King Dingwu by the King of Great Qi and established his own mansion. And Qin Beishan's son, Qin Chen's maternal uncle, Qin Yuanhong, inherited the blessings of his ancestors and was granted the title of Marquis Anping by the King of Great Qi, and was in charge of the Dingwu king's mansion. Therefore, Qin Chen's maternal aunt became the current mistress of the Dingwu king's mansion. It's just that, Qin Chen's maternal aunt, Madame Zhao, had always been extremely disgusted with Qin Chen and Qin Yuqi, believing that the two of them had tarnished the reputation of the Dingwu king's mansion, and tried every means to drive him out. What are you doing here? Qin Chen looked at Yanzi coldly. Young Master Chen, don't be so sentimental, I'm not here to find you. Yanzi looked at Qin Chen in surprise. In the past, Qin Chen would not have dared to talk to her like this. How come he became so courageous after surviving this time? Miss, my lady guessed that you were here with young Master Chen, and she was right. You shouldn't have forgotten the agreement between you and the lady, right? Qin Yuqi's body trembled, a trace of humiliation flashed in her eyes, and her face seemed a little paler. She looked at Qin Chen, covered him with a silk quilt, stood up, and said softly, Chenair, mother is going out for a while, you rest well. After saying that, she turned around and was about to walk out. With Qin Chen's discerning eyes, he naturally saw Qin Yuqi's trembling at that moment and felt a hint of unease in his heart. He frowned and said, Mother, where are you going? I'll go with you. Qin Yuqi paused, turned her head, touched Qin Chen's face with her warm hand, and showed a smile. Silly child, mother is just in this king's mansion, not going out. Are you afraid that mother will be bullied in the king's mansion? You just woke up, don't catch a cold, take good care of your body, mother will be back soon. Qin Chen frowned and said, No, mother, tell me, what did you agree with Madame Zhao? Qin Yuqi's face was hesitant, not knowing how to speak. Aside, Yanzi said impatiently, why ask so much for someone who is half dead? I'll just tell you directly. Your mother promised Our Lady that she would meet with Prince Qi today. Now Prince Qi has arrived in the living room and is waiting for her to go over. What? Zhao Qirui, Zhao Feng, you bitch, you actually forced my mother to meet this lecher. Everyone in the royal capital knew that Zhao Qirui was the most absurd prince of the great Qi kingdom, spending years in brothels, with a large number of wives and concubines, and his mansion was full of singers and dancers, indulging in depravity all day long, and was jokingly called the amorous prince. Zhao Qirui had always coveted his mother's beauty and had come to the door several times, but his mother had refused. Who knew that Zhao Feng had invited this old lecher to his home, which was simply too much to deceive people? Qin Chen stared at Yanzi fiercely, two cold lights shot out from his eyes, and he said angrily, and you lowly servant, get out of here. What did you say? Yanzi trembled with anger, pointing at Qin Chen, but was intimidated by Qin Chen's gaze and dared not speak. Instead, she angrily said to Qin Yuqi, Miss, is this how you teach your son? And as for your matter with Prince Qi, you agreed to it in the first place. Could it be that you want to go back on your word? Mother agreed. Qin Chen was shocked and looked at his mother. How was this possible? In his memory, his mother was very disgusted with Zhao Qirui and was even more annoyed by his pursuit. How could she agree to meet him? He wanted to hear a negative answer from his mother, but he saw Qin Yuqi's body tremble, and she remained silent for a long time. Chenair, you just woke up. Rest first. Don't hurt your body. That would be bad. Mother is just going to see him. Nothing will happen. In the end, Qin Yuqi said with difficulty. Qin Chen looked at Qin Yuqi in disbelief and said anxiously, Mother, why? You know what kind of person Zhao Qirui is. Going out to see him is like a sheep entering a tiger's mouth. Why? Young Master Chen, how can you still have the face to ask why? Yanzi looked at Qin Chen with a mocking expression. You fought with someone in private and fell into a coma. Seeing that you were not going to survive, it was your good mother who knelt outside Our Lady's door all night, begging her to bestow a returning spirit pill. Madame Zhao was kind and agreed to the Mrs. request. How can you still have the face to ask why? If I were you, I would have already killed myself here. Shut your mouth. Qin Yuqi suddenly looked at Yanzi and said angrily, Madame Zhao promised me in the first place that she would not say this matter. How dare you talk nonsense? Qin Chen looked at his angry mother and felt a pain in his heart. He finally understood that the reason his mother agreed to Zhao Feng to see Zhao Qirui was to ask for the returning spirit pill to save him. Returning spirit pill. It was just a second-grade pill, worth only a few thousand silver coins. But for this returning spirit pill, his mother gave up her dignity. Qin Chen's heart trembled, and tears welled up in his eyes. He got up from the bed, grabbed Qin Yuqi, who was about to leave, gritted his teeth and said, Mother, we'll just stay here. We won't go to see anyone. Don't worry, from today onwards, I won't let my mother suffer any more hardships, and I won't let you go to see that old bastard Zhao Qirui. Qin Yuqi's body trembled, and she looked at Qin Chen with tears in her beautiful eyes. Qin Chen's expression was cold. He looked at Yanzi coldly, his eyes like a sharp knife, and said in a cold voice, "As for you, get out of here now. You little bastard, how dare you yell at me?" Rouge's face quickly flushed with anger, and she trembled with rage, even uttering the words, "Little bastard." In the Wang residence, many servants privately referred to Qin Chen as a little bastard, but when facing Qin Chen, almost no one dared to call him that. After all, Qin Yuqi was the daughter of the Dingwu king and the eldest miss of the Qin family. But in her anger, Rouge couldn't care less. She pointed at Qin Chen and said with a mocking expression, "Just because I call you young Master Chen, you really think you're a young master? I spit on that." Qin Yuqi's face turned pale and ashen as she glared at Rouge and said, "Rouge, what did you call Chenair? Remember your place, you're just a maid. Oh, eldest miss, you're actually putting on airs with me." Rouge looked coldly at Qin Yuqi, and mocked with no fear, "Eldest miss, don't be so quick to jump out. The madam anticipated that you would break your promise and prepared a backup plan. Someone, take the eldest miss to the main hall. Don't keep the madam and the honored guest waiting." Bang! As soon as Rouge finished speaking, the door was kicked open, and two burly Qin family guards walked in from outside, quickly approaching Qin Yuqi. "Eldest miss, please come with us." These two guards raised their heads, coldly scrutinizing Qin Yuqi, a hint of greed flashing in their eyes. As they spoke, they were about to grab Qin Yuqi. Qin Yuqi was naturally beautiful, with a face that could topple kingdoms. Although she had not lived well in recent years, her exquisite beauty became even more refined and ethereal. Which man in the Qin family, when talking about the eldest miss, didn't drool with desire and yearn for her in their hearts? Under such circumstances, wouldn't it seem like no one would notice if they took advantage of her a little? "I'd like to see who dares to touch my mother." Qin Chen quickly grabbed a sword from the wall. Clang! The long sword was unsheathed. He stepped forward, standing in front of Qin Yuqi, the long sword held diagonally, two cold beams of light shooting out from his eyes, landing on the two guards like sharp blades. An inexplicable aura emanated from Qin Chen. The two guards felt a chill all over their bodies, as if they were being stared at by the Grim Reaper. A cold air rushed from their tailbones straight to the top of their heads, and goosebumps inexplicably rose all over their bodies. They even found it difficult to breathe, and their movements faltered. "What's going on?" The two guards exchanged a glance, both feeling unbelievable. At this moment, Qin Chen's appearance and aura had not changed, but they inexplicably felt a sense of fear. It was as if they didn't listen to him, they would encounter a nightmare. The two couldn't help but look at Rouge. "You two good-for-nothings, you're scared by just Qin Chen. Don't forget who's in charge of this family. Hurry up and take the eldest miss to the main hall. Can you bear the madam's blame?" Rouge was furious. What were these two doing? They were actually scared by Qin Chen, this little bastard. Although Qin Chen was a young master, his status was not even as good as an ordinary steward, and he had always been timid, not even daring to kill a chicken. If this got out, how would they ever be able to survive in the Qin residence in the future? Thinking of this, one of the guards immediately snorted coldly, stepped forward, and said in a cold voice, "Young Master Chen, please respect yourself. We are acting on Madame Zhao's orders to take the eldest miss to the main hall. If young Master Chen dares to obstruct us, don't blame us for being impolite." Unexpectedly, Qin Chen didn't move an inch. The long sword stood in front of him, his eyes were cold, and he said word by word, "If you don't want to live, try touching my mother." His voice, as if popping out from the nine nether hells, made the two guards' steps falter again. Qin Chen then looked at Rouge, and said sternly, "And you, relying on your master's power, arrogant and domineering, dare to be presumptuous in front of my mother. Believe it or not, I'll exile you 3,000 miles away, making you a government prostitute, unable to turn yourself around for the rest of your life." Rouge's face stiffened. If things really got out of hand, Madame Zhao might be fine, but these servants and guards, would definitely not have a good ending. Oh, who is going to exile who? A piercing voice suddenly rang out, followed by a series of footsteps coming from outside the door. A group of servants dressed in brocade robes first entered the room, standing on both sides, followed by a middle-aged woman dressed in palace attire, appearing dignified and elegant, walking in from the middle of the crowd. This person was wearing a gold-threaded cloud robe, with red agate coral jade hairpins in her hair, and 4 or 5 gemstone rings on her 10 slender fingers, wearing gold and silver, very wealthy. Beside her, there was also a middle-aged man with a wretched appearance, a bloated figure, but wearing very luxurious clothes. As soon as he came in, his eyes fell on Qin Yuqi, his lecherous eyes rolling around, almost drooling. Madam. When Rouge saw this person, her previous arrogant expression immediately subsided, her face turned pale, and she lowered her body with some fear. This person was the mistress of the Qin family, Zhao Feng, Madame Zhao. Next to her was Qi King Zhao Qirui, a notorious lecher in the Great Qi Kingdom. Madame Zhao glanced coldly at Rouge and snorted, "You can't even do such a small thing well. How have I taught you in the past?" Rouge was so frightened that she hurriedly knelt on the ground, her face pale, and said, "This servant is incompetent. Please punish me, madam." "Step aside, you disgrace." "Yes, madam." Rouge hurriedly retreated to the side, trembling, looking at Qin Chen with resentment, but sneering in her heart. "Humph, you little beast. Now that the madam is here, let's see how you can be arrogant." Madame Zhao looked at Qin Chen, who was holding a long sword, and said in a cold voice, "I didn't expect that my nephew, after being unconscious for a few days, would become so courageous. Not only dares to take lives, but also wants to exile my people 3,000 miles away, to be government prostitutes. Ha ha, you've really grown some guts. People who don't know would think that the one speaking is the eldest son of my Qin family." Qin Yuqi's expression changed, and she hurriedly said, "Madame Zhao, Qinair is still young and only acted impulsively, speaking without thinking. Please don't take it to heart." Madame Zhao coldly said, "Young. If I remember correctly, Qin Chen is almost 16 this year, right? I heard that not long ago, at the awakening ceremony at Tianxing Academy, he still didn't awaken his bloodline. As a member of the Qin family, instead of studying hard and striving to bring glory to our Qin clan, he engaged in private fights at the academy, damaging the reputation of Dingwu royal mansion. Furthermore, he's spouting nonsense and bullying servants here, violating the Qin family rules. What should his punishment be?" Qin Yuqi swayed, her face turning pale. Madame Zhao was trying to condemn Qinair. "The one who should be punished is you, right?" Qin Chen's eyes turned cold as he looked up at Zhao Feng. Facing Madame Zhao, who held great power in the Qin family, he showed no fear and coldly said, "As the matriarch of the Qin family, you indulge your servants and bully family disciples. Is this what you call the Qin family rules? You." Madame Zhao didn't expect Qin Chen to dare retort, and she couldn't help but fly into a rage. But before she could speak, she heard Qin Chen continue to shout angrily, "As a woman, you meet with Zhao Qirui, who has a terrible reputation in the capital for being licentious and depraved, engaging in illicit affairs. Is this your womanly virtue?" Zhao Qirui, who had been watching the show with a lecherous gaze fixed on Qin Yuqi, suddenly froze, his face turning red. "This little beast, he's cursing me too," Zhao Qirui cursed inwardly. "You." Madame Zhao pointed at Qin Chen, trembling with anger, and said, "Zhao Qirui is my royal brother. Madame Zhao's ancestors had some connection with the royal family and were once princes. It wasn't presumptuous for Zhao Feng to call Zhao Qirui her royal brother. Good. You two, as siblings, engaging in secret rendezvous is an act of incest, even more disgraceful. As a madam bestowed by the imperial court, you should be a role model for all women, acting with dignity. If this matter spreads, how will the Qin family maintain its position in the Great Qi Kingdom?" Qin Chen roared repeatedly, his eyes flashing with cold light. You little beast, you're simply talking nonsense. Seize him for me." Madame Zhao could no longer endure it and roared at the two guards. She trembled with anger. If Qin Chen's words were to spread from the Qin mansion, where would she, the Qin family's matriarch, find the face to continue staying in the capital? Upon hearing Madame Zhao's order, the two guards roared and pounced on Qin Chen, one on the left and one on the right, restraining him in the center. Qin Yuqi exclaimed and stood in front of Qin Chen without regard for her own safety, angrily saying, "Who dares to touch my Chenair?" One of the guards' eyes turned cold, and he coldly said, "Miss, I'm sorry." With that, he pushed out with his hand, wanting to push Qin Yuqi away. However, before his hand could touch Qin Yuqi's shoulder, suddenly, a sharp, cold light flashed past. Everyone only felt a blur before their eyes, and the air in the room turned cold. Immediately afterward, with a *pocky* sound, blood splattered. The guard let out a shrill scream as half of his arm was sliced off by Qin Chen's sword, and blood splattered everywhere. In his agony, he retreated violently, but the long sword in Qin Chen's hand was like a shooting star chasing the moon, following closely behind. No matter how the guard tried to dodge, he couldn't escape. He watched helplessly as the blood-stained tip of the sword pierced into his heart, his eyes filled with endless fear. Drawing the sword, sheathing the sword, all in one go. Poochie. *. A stream of hot blood spurted out from the guard's chest, shooting up 2 meters high. The guard panicked, trying to cover the wound with his hand, but the blood flowed like a fountain, and no matter how he covered it, he couldn't stop it. Finally, a look of extreme fear appeared in his eyes, and his body went limp and fell to the ground. "I said, whoever dares to touch my mother, I will take their life." Qin Chen said each word distinctly. Holding his long sword, he was like a god of death, not even glancing at the fallen guard. His voice was as cold as a demon from the 9 nether hell. The blood on the tip of the sword dripped slowly, and the room was silent. Only the sound of blood dripping on the ground echoed. Madame Zhao and her group of fierce people were all stunned in place, like ducks with their necks choked, at a loss. The servants who were watching from afar outside the door all had horrified expressions. Rouge was even more frightened, her face pale and trembling, and she shuddered in her heart. This little beast actually dares to kill someone. As for the other guard, he only felt a chill on his head, covered in cold sweat, his body stiff, and he didn't dare to move. He had just remembered. This young master Qin Chen, although he hadn't awakened his bloodline, he had indeed entered the royal capital Tianxing Academy through his own abilities. At only 15 years old, he was already a human-level martial artist. In the Tianwu Continent, martial artists are divided into 9 levels. Human, Earth, Heaven, Profound, Sect, Venerable, King, Emperor, and Divine. Each level is further divided into 3 stages: initial, intermediate, and late. Each level is like a new heaven to ascend. Before the human level, there is actually a condensing meridian stage. The so-called condensing meridian stage is about opening up the meridians in the body. Only by opening up more than 7 meridians can one condense true qi and enter the human level. Therefore, the human level can already be considered a true martial artist. These ordinary guards are basically at the middle and late stages of the human level. That's why he was killed by Qin Chen with one sword. After a brief daze, Madame Zhao was the first to regain her senses. Her face was flushed red, and her eyes shot out a look of unbelievable viciousness. She really hadn't expected that Qin Chen, who had always been timid and submissive, would dare to kill someone in public. It wasn't just her. Even Qin Yuqi was stunned, her heart sinking heavily at the same time as she was shocked. "Qin Chen, you're crazy. You dare to commit murder in public. Someone, seize him and punish him according to family law to serve as a warning to others." Madame Zhao roared ferociously, her voice like thunder. "Yes." The other guard immediately came back to his senses. Clang! He drew the saber from his waist, his eyes staring at Qin Chen like a wolf, and pounced on him fiercely. He stomped hard on the ground with both feet, and with a whoosh his figure was like a cheetah, and the saber in his hand turned into a cold light, slashing towards Qin Chen's arm. This strike of his was a move from the Qin family's famous yellow-level saber technique, Flying Dragon Saber Technique, called Poisonous Dragon Spits Venom. In the Tianwu Continent, the grades of cultivation techniques and martial skills are divided into 4 levels from high to low: Heaven, Earth, Profound, and Yellow. And each level is further divided into upper, middle, and lower grades, a total of 4 levels and 12 grades. Although the Flying Dragon Saber technique is only a yellow level saber technique, it is a high-grade yellow level saber technique. Among them, the poisonous dragon spits venom is the most sinister. The saber is like a poisonous dragon spitting venom to hunt, the attack being vicious and ruthless. He had already decided to stab a hole in Qin Chen's hand, so as to avenge his dead brother. Anyway, the order was given by Madame Zhao. As long as he didn't kill Qin Chen, he would at most receive some punishment. Aside from Qin Yuqi, everyone else's eyes flickered when they saw this saber. This saber moved with the force of a tiger, its power astonishing. It indeed possessed some skill, causing a chill to run down one's spine. However, Madame Zhao was still not satisfied. She felt that the guard's target was too conservative. He shouldn't have aimed only for Qin Chen's arm but rather for his head. Even so, everyone seemed to envision a scene of Qin Chen covered in blood, begging for mercy in agony. But, clang, clang, clang. The expected scene did not occur. In an instant, 3 cold glints erupted from the long sword in Qin Chen's hand, followed by the sound of metal clashing. Before the guard could understand what had happened, he only felt a blur before his eyes and a numbness in his palm. The saber hilt in his hand vibrated violently, and he almost lost his grip, nearly dropping it. He hastily activated his Yuan Qi, barely managing to hold onto the saber. Then, just as he was about to counterattack, in the next instant, a long sword radiating a cold light was already pressed against his throat. The icy touch, like the Grim Reaper's scythe, controlled his life, causing him to feel a chill throughout his body, his scalp tingling, as if in a nightmare, his body frozen in place. In an instant, everyone around widened their eyes, almost unable to believe what they were seeing. If the previous guard had been caught off guard and Qin Chen had taken advantage, then this guard had just attacked with all his might, yet the result was still shocking. Even the guard himself couldn't understand how Qin Chen, only at the early stage of the human realm, had managed to block his venomous dragon's breath, withstand his late-stage human realm cultivation, and gain the upper hand. This little bastard actually, Madame Zhao's eyes turned cold, and she was also greatly surprised. She blurted out, "Qin Chen, how dare you? Put down your sword now." She glared fiercely, radiating authority. At this moment, she still possessed the imposing manner of the Qin family's matriarch. "Put it down." Qin Chen grinned. A cold, stern light shot out from his eyes. He pressed down hard with the long sword in his hand, then pulled. "Young Master Chen, don't." Upon seeing this, the guard felt a chill in his heart and hurriedly begged for mercy, but it was already too late. PFFT. A stream of hot blood, like a fountain, spurted out from his neck, splattering far and wide on the ground. His corpse fell powerlessly to the ground. "You wanted to kill me, yet you expect me to spare him." Qin Chen's face always wore a smile, but in the eyes of others, it made him feel a chill throughout their bodies, as if he were a demon. For a time, the entire Qin mansion was silent. "And you?" Qin Chen turned to look at Zhao Qirui, his eyes slightly narrowed, like a wolf staring at its prey. He said coldly, "If you dare to covet my mother again, be careful, I might not be able to resist killing you." An expression of anger immediately appeared on Zhao Qiru's face. He was just about to explode in anger, but after seeing Qin Chen's eyes, a chill rose inexplicably from the soles of his feet, his face turned pale, and he couldn't speak for a moment. He looked at Madame Zhao and said with a snort, "Madame Zhao, is this what you call a well-negotiated agreement?" Madame Zhao hurriedly explained, "Prince Qi, there's a misunderstanding here. Let me explain." Then, she stared fixedly at Qin Chen, trembling with anger, the hairpins on her head shaking incessantly. She pointed at Qin Chen and said, "Good, good, you little bastard, you've got guts now, daring to threaten even Prince Qi." Her gaze was as fierce as a venomous snake, and she suddenly turned to look behind her. Many servants and attendants outside, who had come to watch the commotion upon hearing the noise, shrank back in fright and quietly retreated a few steps. Finally, she fixed her gaze on an old man who had always been following behind her, saying resentfully, "Qin Yong, what are you still standing there for? Capture this little bastard for me." "Yes, madam." The old man named Qin Yong responded and walked out from the crowd. This person was wearing a dark blue robe, with his hands tucked inside his wide sleeves. His gaze was indifferent, yet carried a hint of coldness. He had been watching the situation in the room coldly, his expression never changing. Now that he had come out, everyone's gaze fell upon him. Everyone's pupils shrank, including Qin Chen's. From this person, he sensed an extremely dangerous aura. Earthrealm expert, Qin Chen said silently in his heart, his eyes colder than ever before. Young Master Chen, you've gone too far. This old servant doesn't want to fight you. Young Master Chen should just surrender and obediently listen to Madam's orders, Qin Yong said indifferently, his emotionless eyes staring coldly at Qin Chen. Qin Chen's expression remained unchanged, and he smiled coldly. Want me to surrender? We'll see if you have the ability. An Earthrealm expert, that's all. If he fought with all his might, it wasn't as if he had no power to resist. Qin Yong frowned and said, in that case, this old servant will have to overstep his bounds. As soon as he finished speaking, Qin Yong's figure suddenly resembled an eagle, instantly pouncing out. In an instant, a terrifying gust of wind swept through the entire room. Qin Yong's hands formed claws, instantly grabbing towards Qin Chen. This attack was several times stronger than the previous two guards. The intense aura suppressed Qin Chen, making it difficult for him to breathe, and his bones creaked. Qin Yong, how dare you try to touch Chen? Qin Yuqi, who had been constantly watching her son's situation, suddenly rushed out, blocking Qin Chen. Qin Chen, with a sway of his body, once again blocked Qin Yuqi behind him with his sword. His eyes were cold and stern, and as soon as Qin Yong's claws landed, he would explode into action. Although Earthrealm martial artists were strong, he believed that when the opponent struck him, he would also be able to kill them in one fell swoop. Seeing that Qin Yong's claws were only a few feet away from him. Just then, a loud voice suddenly came from outside the house, causing people's eardrums to ache. Stop it, all of you. A middle-aged man wearing a brocade robe, purple cloud boots, and a three-finger-wide gold-edged python belt strode into the room like a dragon and a tiger. Qin Yong's claws stopped abruptly 1 foot above Qin Chen's head, and then he quickly flashed to the side, bowing respectfully. Marquis. Everyone in the room bowed and saluted, saying respectfully. The person who came was none other than Qin Chen's uncle, Marquis Anping, Qin Yuanhong. Madame Zhao hurriedly came to Qin Yuanhong's side, saying in exasperation, Marquis, you've come at the right time. Today, this little bastard has simply turned the world upside down. Not only did he kill 2 guards, but he also dared to threaten Prince Qi. If we don't promote family law today, some people will probably go to heaven. Enough. Qin Yuanhong shouted coldly, his face gloomy, and said, do you still think you haven't made enough of a scene? What? Madame Zhao was stunned, her 2 small eyeballs bulging round, staring at Qin Yuanhong and saying, Marquis, it's not that I want to make trouble, it's this little bastard. Qin Yuanhong shouted angrily, shut up. Little bastard. Little bastard, is this the demeanor of you being the Qin family's matriarch? He is your nephew. If he is a little bastard, then what is our Qin family? Madame Zhao's face flushed red, trembling with anger. She still wanted to retort, but seeing Qin Yuanhong's gloomy face, she immediately held back what she wanted to say. The other servants, seeing the family head's fury, all knelt on the ground, their faces pale and silent as cicadas. Afterward, Qin Yuanhong approached Zhao Qirui, whose face was unsightly, and cupped his hands, saying, Your Highness Prince Qi, our Qin family's discipline is lacking, I apologize for the spectacle. Zhao Qirui raised his eyebrows and coldly snorted, Marquis Qin, just now your Qin family's disciples were threatening my life. I'm very interested to see how you will handle this. Qin Yuanhong nodded and said, This matter, Qin will naturally give Prince Qi an explanation. However, Prince Qi, your visit to my humble abode today to see my younger sister, if it gets out, it might not be appropriate, right? I have urgent matters to attend to in my mansion, so I won't keep Prince Qi any longer. He was issuing an order to leave. Zhao Qiru's face changed, his fair complexion turning even paler. He took a few deep breaths, seemingly unable to suppress his anger, but he forcibly swallowed it. He flung his sleeves and said, Marquis Qin, you have great prestige. I will remember this matter today. He coldly snorted and left the Qin mansion with an unsightly expression. Qin Yuanhong looked at the crowd present and coldly shouted, and you, go do what you're supposed to do. Are you all standing here wanting to be punished? Immediately, a group of servants stood up in fear and hurriedly retreated from the courtyard. Even Madame Zhao left with a livid face, casting a venomous glance at Qin Chen and Qin Yuqi before leaving. Soon, only Qin Yuanhong and Qin Chen and his mother, along with a few servants from Qin Yuanhong's side, remained in the courtyard. Qin Chen, you're really something, you actually dared to kill people. Qin Yuanhong looked at the two corpses on the ground with some surprise, and said to the servants beside him, dispose of the bodies, and send 50 taels of silver to each of their families, and tell them that their husbands died for the Qin clan. Yes, family head. Several servants quickly disposed of the bodies of the two guards and carried them away. Qin Yuanhong stood there quietly, looked at Qin Yuqi, his gaze softening slightly, and said, Third sister, are you still blaming your elder brother? Hearing the words, third sister, Qin Yuqi's body trembled, her nose tingled, she pursed her lips, trying not to cry, and said faintly, Marquis, Qin Yuqi dares not. Qin Yuanhong sighed and said, you also know, back then, you went out behind the family's back and brought Qin Chen back, causing such a sensation in the royal capital, and causing such a big impact on our Qin family. As the head of the family, I had no choice. Qin Yuqi doesn't blame the Marquis, it was all Yuqi's own fault, Qin Yuqi said, biting her lip. Seeing Qin Yuqi's stubborn expression, Qin Yuanhong couldn't help but wave his hand, his expression also turned gloomy, and he said dejectedly, let's not mention the past. Then, he turned to stare at Qin Chen and said coldly, I will not pursue this matter today for the time being. In half a month, it will be the Heavenly Star Academy's grand examination. You must work hard to cultivate and strive to complete the bloodline awakening before the grand examination, so that the dignitaries of the royal capital will know that every disciple of my Qin family has the talent to become a strong person, and not a good-for-nothing. After saying that, Qin Yuanhong left the house without saying a word. That cold, steel-like back made Qin Chen's eyes turn cold. The noisy courtyard quickly quieted down, everyone left, leaving only Qin Chen and his mother. Qin Yuqi's eyes were tightly locked, staring at the outside of the door, her face livid, her eyes cold. Qin Chen felt that Qin Yuqi's condition was not right, and asked with concern, Mother, what's wrong? Qin Yuqi then woke up, looked at Qin Chen with pity, and said, Chenair, I'm fine, are you hungry? Rest for a while, and I'll get you something to eat. Saying that, Qin Yuqi came to the outer courtyard and started a fire to cook. This young lady of the Qin mansion didn't hesitate at all, her movements were swift, obviously it wasn't the first time she had done it. Before long, a bowl of steaming noodles was brought to Qin Chen. Qin Chen was also hungry. Having just awakened, he was naturally extremely weak after a battle. He immediately began to eat heartily. Being reborn and eating these hot, fragrant noodles, Qin Chen couldn't help but feel a sense of being in another world. Qin Yuqi looked at Qin Chen with love, a hint of hesitation flashed across her face, but she finally gritted her teeth and said, Chenair, you are still too young. There are some things that I shouldn't tell you, but sometimes, I have to tell you, I hope you can understand me. Qin Chen felt that Qin Yuqi had something to say, raised his head, and said, Mother, what is it? Tell me. Qin Yuqi said, Your uncle is a general of the household, in theft as the Marquis of Anping. He is an extremely iron-hearted person, his actions are strict, and rewards and punishments are equally important. The fact that he didn't punish you today is not his style. You must remember the last sentence he said. Looking at Qin Yuqi's worried face, Qin Chen said lightly, Mother means that he let me go today on the surface, but in reality, he is waiting for me to fail the Academy's grand examination, so that he will have even more reason to punish me as well. Qin Yuqi was stunned, raised her head and looked at Qin Chen in surprise, then suddenly smiled, My Chenair has really grown up. A cold light flashed in Qin Chen's eyes, and he said with a smile, Mother, You don't have to worry, I will definitely be able to awaken my bloodline and pass the Academy's grand examination. Yes. Mother believes in you. Qin Yuqi took a deep look at Qin Chen, and sighed slightly in her heart. In fact, she knew in her heart that Qin Chen was almost 16 years old, and there was almost no possibility of awakening his bloodline again. However, as a mother, all she could do was encourage her child. After a moment, she said firmly again, Chen, believe in mother, even if we don't stay in the Qin family, I can still make a living for the two of us. Qin Chen knew what Qin Yuqi was thinking, he didn't say much, just nodded and said, Mother, don't worry, even if we go out now, I can support you, and guarantee that you won't suffer any more grievances. He clenched his fists, his will was extremely firm. Mother, you just wait for me to give you a surprise, I will definitely not let you down. The atmosphere in the Qin family's most luxurious sea garden was extremely heavy. Zhao Feng, draped in colorful robes and cradling a glossy black cat, sat motionless, her gaze as cold and venomous as a viper's. At that moment, an exceptionally beautiful maid walked in and respectfully said, Madam, the Marquis has returned. I know, Zhao Feng said coldly, standing up and walking towards the outside of the house. Qin Yuanhong was slowly walking into the main hall. Qin Yuanhong, what's wrong with you today? You actually let that little beast go, and in front of so many people, you embarrassed Prince Qi. Tell me, what exactly do you mean by this? Zhao Feng said, exasperated. The Zhao family, a collateral branch of the imperial family, was also a well-known and influential family in the royal capital, so Zhao Feng spoke to Qin Yuanhong as if she were interrogating him, showing no fear. Qin Yuanhong frowned and said, You're asking me. I haven't even asked you yet. What kind of trouble are you causing in the mansion all day long? Zhao Feng angrily said, What trouble can I cause? Isn't it all to get that BTCH Qin Yuqi to leave our Qin family, so that little beast won't seize our Qin family's property in the future? But you actually helped that little beast. I see you're unwilling to let your good sister leave. I knew it. None of you in the Qin family are good people. What nonsense are you spouting? What nonsense am I spouting? Back then, when that BTCH Qin Yuqi did such a heinous thing, your father not only didn't chase her away but instead kept her and her child. Now that kid also carries the Qin surname, he will definitely threaten Feng's position and inheritance in the future. Am I wrong to say this? Zhao Feng said with a sneer. Qin Yuanhong's face was ashen as he stared coldly at Zhao Feng and said, You also know that father still cares about his third daughter. Then why did you dare to let Prince Qi come today? You know father's temper. If he finds out about what happened today, who can protect you? Then are we just going to let that little beast continue to stay in the Qin family? Zhao Feng's eyes were venomous, her chest heaving. That's why I'm telling you to be patient. Qin Yuanhong's eyes were dark and he sneered, Qin Chen hasn't even awakened his bloodline yet. He will definitely fail the upcoming academy entrance examination. Once he is expelled from the Heavenly Star Academy, as the head of the family, I will have a reason to kick him out of the Qin family. By then, even father won't be able to say anything. But you're just causing trouble at home all day long. HMPH. Truly a woman's limited vision. Zhao Feng was stunned, her eyes flashed, and she said, So that's what you're planning. Otherwise, what did you think? What else can a woman like you do besides ruin things? Qin Yuanhong snorted coldly, his anger surging, and turned to enter the house. That's right. Every disciple of the Qin family possesses unique skills. If that little beast fails the academy entrance examination, then expelling him will leave the old master with nothing to say. After being scolded by Qin Yuanhong, Zhao Feng was not angry. Instead, a hint of a smile curled up at the corner of her lips. Meow. The black cat in her arms suddenly cried out in terror, jumped to the ground, and looked at its owner with a trembling expression of fear, its fur standing on end like a hedgehog. Madame Zhao was holding a tuft of cat fur in her hand, which she had just forcibly pulled out. In the empty, cold room, Qin Chen sat quietly, frowning as he pondered his future path. 300 years of vicissitudes had passed. Whether it was to seek revenge on Shangguan Xie and Feng Xiaoyu, or for the sake of his mother, he knew that he had to become stronger and become a powerhouse capable of controlling the Tianwu Continent. The first step was to awaken his bloodline. To become a powerhouse, the first step was to awaken one's bloodline. Qin Chen was already 15 years old, but he still hadn't awakened his bloodline. If one hadn't awakened their bloodline by the age of 16, in the words of the Tianwu Continent, they would have missed the best age. Even if they awakened it later, they wouldn't achieve much. In the Tianwu Continent, everyone possesses a bloodline. If one fails to awaken it for a long time, there are only two possible reasons. One is that the innate bloodline is too thin to meet the conditions for awakening, and the other is that there is a problem with the body that prevents awakening. Regardless of which of the two reasons it is, I have a way to solve it. First, let's see what this body's talent and foundation are like. In his previous life, as an 8th level bloodline royal master, awakening bloodlines was not a problem for Qin Chen at all. For martial artists, talent, comprehension, and aptitude are the top 3 most important factors. There was no need to talk about comprehension, otherwise, he wouldn't have achieved such accomplishments in his previous life. But talent and aptitude were innate qualities of the body. The foundation of this body is considered decent, but there are also many problems. After some investigation, Qin Chen had a clear understanding of his own situation, and his brows furrowed slightly. The predecessor of this body possessed excellent martial arts talent, entered the royal capital's Heavenly Star Academy, and opened up 7 meridians, entering the human realm. With such talent, becoming an ordinary powerhouse wouldn't be a problem, but defeating Shangguan Xie and Feng Xiaoyu is still a long way off. Qin Chen fell into deep thought. A martial artist's foundation is like building a house, the foundation must be solid, otherwise, no matter how hard they cultivate later, problems will arise. This body had just opened up 7 basic meridians and hastily entered the human realm. Although it condensed a chi pool, it is not stable and has a small capacity. It may seem like there are no problems now, but once cultivation reaches a higher level, troubles will follow one after another. Qin Chen felt the pigeon egg-sized chi pool in his dantian and felt somewhat worried. Opening up 7 meridians was almost the weakest among martial artists. Generally, only the weakest martial artists would rush to condense a chi pool and enter the human realm after only opening up 7 meridians. Those top geniuses in the martial domain, which one of them hadn't opened up 8, 9, or even 10 meridians before choosing to condense a chi pool. Some of the most heaven-defying individuals would even open up 11 meridians. Qin Chen clearly remembered that Feng Xiaoyu and Shangguan Xie had each opened up 11 meridians, and in this life, if he wanted to take revenge, he had to become even stronger. With such a foundation, if I continue to cultivate, it will be difficult to restore my cultivation from my previous life. Even if I catch up later, it will be impossible to improve further. Moreover, with the current body, I have no way to cultivate the 9-star God Emperor art. The 9-star God Emperor art was an ancient cultivation technique that Qin Chen obtained in the Forbidden Land in his previous life. It was also the strongest cultivation technique he had ever obtained, said to have been passed down from the Celestial Realm. The Celestial Realm was a legend in the Tianwu Continent. According to legend, the 9 Heavens Martial Emperor realm was not the end of martial arts. Above the 9 Heavens Martial Emperor, there was an even more terrifying martial god realm, capable of shattering the void and entering a higher realm, the Celestial Realm. However, in the 10,000 years of history in the Tianwu Continent, no one had ever broken through to the martial god realm, so no one knew whether the Celestial Realm truly existed. Originally, Qin Chen didn't believe these things either, but after entering the Forbidden Land, his thinking completely changed. The land of divine restriction far surpassed the level possessed by the heavenly martial continent. Before entering the land of divine restriction, Qin Chen could hardly believe that there was such a magical technique as the 9 stars divine emperor art. Because it stated that only those who had opened up all 12 meridians in the body tempering stage were qualified to practice the 9 stars divine emperor art. However, although the human body possessed 12 meridians, wanting to achieve this in the body tempering stage, in Qin Chen's memory, there had never been a single case in the entire history of the heavenly martial continent for 10,000 years. Even in his previous life, the most outstanding genius in the martial domain could only open up 11 meridians, which was already the limit. However, the 9 stars Divine Emperor art recorded the method to open up 12 meridians. When I obtained the 9 stars Divine Emperor art in my previous life, I was already an 8th level martial emperor, and it was long past the time to lay the foundation. Now that God has given me another chance, it would be a waste of my rebirth if I didn't cultivate the 9 stars Divine Emperor art. But, now that I have entered the human realm, the 7 meridians have already been shaped. Unless I break and then establish, it is impossible to open up the remaining meridians. Feng Xiaoyu and the others are eager to act, probably to obtain the 9 stars Divine Emperor art and other treasures from me, right? Qin Chen's eyes were as bright as stars. He pondered for a moment, opened the door, and strode out. Mother, I'm going out for a while, I'll be right back. Qin Chen greeted his mother and quickly left the Qin mansion. Be careful, Qin Yuqi said urgently, and don't cause trouble. She didn't say this aloud, but prayed silently in her heart. Along the way, all the servants of the Qin family retreated far to the side when they encountered him, and even the guards at the gate of the Qin mansion looked strange and were respectful. The fact that Qin Chen killed 2 guards in front of Madame Zhao had already spread throughout the Qin mansion, and almost no one in the Qin mansion dared to underestimate this young master with a special status. On the street, the royal capital was bustling with activity, and Qin Chen suddenly had a feeling of being in another world. He carefully felt the plants, trees, people, and scenery here, and couldn't help but be immersed in it. Following his memory, he walked into an extremely lively street in the royal capital, and gradually arrived at the most prosperous street in the Great Qi Kingdom's royal capital. On both sides of the street, various magnificent and imposing shops stood tall. To break and then establish, and recondense the meridians, I must rely on the Heavenly Meridian Divine Needles, and the materials for refining the Heavenly Meridian Divine Needles are very precious, and can only be found in places where weapon refiners gather. Qin Chen thought to himself as he walked forward. Suddenly, a landmark-like building appeared in front of him. This building was 100 meters high, with a magnificent aura, located at a corner of the street, occupying an excellent geographical location. At this moment, on the open space in front of the shop's entrance, pedestrians were constantly flowing, and luxurious carriages were parked, indicating that the guests entering this shop were either rich or noble. Weapon Hall. Qin Chen raised his head, saw the gilded characters on the plaque at the entrance of the building, and strode in. The Weapon Hall was one of the most powerful organizations in the Heavenly Martial Continent, with an extremely long history, said to have been inherited from ancient times. In the Heavenly Martial Continent, organizations such as the Weapon Hall, the Alchemist Hall, and the Bloodline Sacred Ground possessed strong strength, and even the top empires on the continent had to admire them. Among them, the Weapon Hall was an organization that specialized in gathering weapon refiners from all over the world. The professional assessment, rank promotion, and badge issuance of weapon refiners all over the world needed to be completed in the Weapon Hall. Every city had a branch of the Weapon Hall, and the Weapon Hall of Qi Capital was located in the royal capital of the entire Great Qi Kingdom, and its magnificence and size were naturally incomparable to other branches. I wonder if there are any materials for refining the Heavenly Meridian Divine Needles here. Casually walking into the Weapon Hall, a noisy sound immediately entered Qin Chen's ears. The first floor hall of the Weapon Hall was extremely wide, with all kinds of people shuttling through it, bustling with activity. There were no security personnel here, but it was orderly. Welcome to the Weapon Hall. May I ask this young master, is there anything I can help you with? A woman in brocade robes suddenly stood in front of Qin Chen and said with a smile. This person was young, with calm eyes and an extraordinary aura. It was obvious that she had seen the world and had the demeanor of someone who was not an ordinary noble's son. Chen Yufei sized up Qin Chen and thought to herself. Qin Chen was slightly stunned, then came back to his senses. In his previous life, every time he went to the Weapon Hall headquarters in the martial domain, the elders and deputy hallmasters of the Weapon Hall had already been waiting outside the door, warmly welcoming him. This kind of gentle and casual greeting actually made Qin Chen a little dazed. He smiled faintly and said, I want to buy these refining materials, I wonder if you have them here. Qin Chen took out paper and pen, quickly wrote a list of materials, and handed it over. Chen Yufei pursed her red cherry lips and smiled. Young master is joking. Our weapon hall is the place with the most refining materials in the Great Qi Kingdom. If we don't have it here, then even if you search the entire Great Qi Kingdom, you may not be able to find it. Chen Yufei smiled and took the list, carefully looking at it. With this look, her expression couldn't help but be startled, her eyes changed from curiosity to surprise, and she couldn't help but laugh. Young master, you didn't write the things inside wrong, did you? I've been in the weapon hall for 4 or 5 years, but I've never heard of most of the materials you wrote. Chen Yufei's words immediately made Qin Chen's heart sink. The thing he least wanted to happen had unexpectedly happened. He knew that the weapon hall of the Great Qi Kingdom was relatively remote, so he had replaced several high-level materials that could refine the heavenly meridian divine needles with more common materials, but he didn't expect that they still didn't have them. If he couldn't refine the heavenly meridian divine needles, then he wouldn't be able to break and then establish, rebuild his Qi pool, and then cultivate the 9 stars divine emperor art. Then take a look at whether you have these materials. Qin Chen wrote down several alternative materials and handed them to Chen Yufei. If they didn't even have these materials, then things would be troublesome. Oh, isn't this Brother Chen? I heard that you didn't awaken your bloodline again at the Academy's awakening ceremony last time. What? You can't become a martial artist, so you want to become a weapon refiner. At this time, a mocking voice suddenly came from the door, and a man and a woman walked in from the entrance of the weapon hall. The man was wearing a white robe and had a somewhat suave demeanor. This person was Qin Chen's second brother, Zhao Feng's second son, Qin Fen. The woman who accompanied Qin Fen was one of the 4 beauties of the royal capital, the beloved daughter of Prince Kang, Zhao Lingshan. Zhao Lingshan was wearing a pink dress, with an otherworldly temperament. At the age of 16 or 17, her figure was extremely hot. Even wearing a dress, one could still feel her curvy figure, which was very voluptuous. Her fair collarbones were like jade, attracting everyone's attention. Hearing Qin Fen's words, Zhao Lingshan curiously glanced at Qin Chen and said, "Is this also a disciple of your Qin family?" Qin Fen smiled and said, "Princess Lingshan, Qin Chen is actually my aunt's son, he's just that one from my Qin family." His words were very vague, but Zhao Lingshan already understood and realized, so he is that illegitimate child. Zhao Lingshan looked at Qin Chen again, a hint of contempt faintly revealed in her eyes. The story of Qin Yuqi, from the nobles of the royal capital to the common people, almost everyone had heard of it. Qin Chen frowned slightly, ignoring the two. Qin Chen's disregard made Qin Fen, who wanted to show off in front of Zhao Lingshan, feel a surge of anger in his heart. He sneered, "Brother Chen, you can't even awaken your bloodline, yet you want to come here to become a weapon refiner. You're really overestimating yourself. This isn't a place for you to be." Qin Chen glanced at him coldly, feeling inexplicable, and said coldly, "Is it any of your business?" Qin Fen was stunned, and then his face suddenly darkened. From childhood to adulthood, this was the first time Qin Chen had spoken to him like this. In the past, this guy had always been submissive. Did he eat a bear's heart and leopard's guts today? Qin Fen hadn't returned to the mansion yet, so naturally he didn't know what had happened in the mansion today. He was immediately furious and said, "I came here to refine a treasure weapon. What are you doing here? You haven't even awakened your bloodline, so you should honestly stay at home. Coming out to swagger around like this is simply embarrassing our Qin family. Believe it or not, this young master will uphold family law on behalf of my father and break your legs." Qin Chen sneered at Qin Fen and taunted, "Do you have the ability to do so?" Hearing this, Qin Fen was slightly stunned, and then laughed loudly. He took a step forward, and a stream of true energy flowed from his body, his robes fluttering without wind. He grinned and said, "Brother Chen, it's been a few days since your second brother taught you a lesson. You've grown fur all over your body, haven't you? I'll just let your second brother stretch his muscles." Qin Chen's eyes were calm, and he stood there aloof. More and more people gathered to watch, and everyone couldn't help but whisper, "Gentlemen, this is the weapon hall. Private fighting is strictly prohibited. Otherwise, Regardless of the reason, you will be severely punished by the weapon hall. The lightest punishment is expulsion from the weapon hall, and the heaviest is immediate execution. Please don't misunderstand yourselves. Just as the two were about to clash, Chen Yufei felt the tension between them and hurriedly stepped forward, speaking loudly. Qin Chen paused, and then woke up. He glared at Qin Chen coldly, unwillingly snorting, "Consider yourself lucky today." Qin Chen was too lazy to talk nonsense with him, and turned to Chen Yufei and said, "Does the weapon hall have these materials?" "What materials? Let me see." But Qin Chen snatched the list and glanced at it disdainfully, immediately laughing, "Hee, I didn't expect your vision to be good, Brother Chen. You actually know about black obsidian stone. This thing is worth 1,000 gold, can you even afford it? And these other materials, what a mess." Qin Chen suppressed the anger in his heart, and suddenly had an idea, saying, "You've also heard of black obsidian stone." "Of course," Qin Chen said proudly, "not only have I heard of it, I even have one." As he said that, he took out a thumb-sized black ore from his body, proudly saying, "This thing is the black obsidian stone that my father bought at the Tongtian Pavilion auction the day before yesterday. Do you know how much money this piece cost? 38,000 silver coins. Even if you sell everything you own, you can't afford a fragment of it." Qin Chen proudly held the thumb-sized black obsidian stone and flaunted it around, attracting envious gazes from the surrounding people. "I came here this time to ask a master from the weapon pavilion to refine a second-tier treasure weapon for me. When the time comes, adding this black obsidian stone will double its power and kill you like killing a dog." Qin Chen laughed loudly. Qin Chen didn't take it seriously. He was too lazy to pay attention to this kind of verbal dispute, and was thinking about how to snatch this black obsidian stone. "Greetings, Master Liang Yu." A middle-aged man in a weapon refiner's robe walked into the weapon hall, looking to be in his 30s, holding his head high, his expression extremely proud. Everyone in the weapon hall respectfully saluted, with a trace of reverence on their faces. "It's actually Master Liang Yu. Have you heard? Master Liang Yu just passed the second-tier weapon refiner assessment a few days ago and became a second-tier weapon refiner." A second-tier weapon refiner in his 30s, Master Liang Yu is truly talented and has unlimited potential. In my opinion, with Master Liang Yu's talent, stepping into a third-tier weapon refiner in the future is just around the corner. Third-tier weapon refiner, just thinking about it is awesome. Alas, I wish I were a weapon refiner. What weapon refiners need is amazing talent and powerful spiritual power. Both are indispensable. I think you should forget about it. The surrounding people were talking and marveling. Qin Chen looked up, his eyes falling on the badge on Liang Yu's chest. Next to the hammer, there were 2 silver threads, indicating the identity of this person as a second-tier weapon refiner. With this badge, no matter where you go in the Tianwu Continent, you can receive corresponding treatment in the weapon hall. The rank division of weapon refiners is the same as that of warriors, divided into 9 ranks, and the honorific titles of each rank correspond to those of warriors. A second-tier weapon refiner is equivalent to the Earth rank. In his previous life, Qin Chen was a 9th-tier Emperor rank weapon refiner and also an honorary elder of the weapon hall, so he naturally knew a lot about these things. He raised his head, his eyes falling on Liang Yu's face, and suddenly he was slightly stunned, as if he had discovered something, and his brows furrowed slightly. Liang Yu came all the way and soon came to Qin Chen and the others. "Master Liang." Chen Yufei looked solemn and hurriedly saluted respectfully. Liang Yu nodded when he saw her, his eyes falling on the black obsidian stone in Qin Fen's hand, his gaze slightly condensed. "Master Liang, I am Qin Fen, the second son of Marquis Anping. I would like to ask Master Liang to use the black obsidian stone to refine a second-tier treasure weapon." Qin Fen hurriedly stepped forward and said. Liang Yu asked, "What do you want to refine?" Qin Fen was overjoyed and said, "A 3-foot-long sword." Liang Yu nodded and said, "Black obsidian stone is a top-grade third-tier refining material, with cold properties. It can increase the sharpness and strength of the sword, and it also has its own ice attribute. It's a pity that it's too wasteful to refine it into a second-tier treasure weapon." My father said that regardless of the success or failure of this refinement, the remaining black obsidian stone will be handled by Master Liang, Qin Chen quickly said. Liang Yu thought for a moment and said, okay, I'll take it. Along the way, many people asked him to refine weapons, but this was the first one he accepted. Qin Chen was immediately overjoyed and hurriedly handed over a silver card, saying, Master Liang, there are 20,000 silver coins here, half for the materials and half for the refining fee. Liang Yu took the silver card and nodded slightly. Master Liang, I am Zhao Lingshan, my father is Zhao Jing, and this is a letter from my father to you. Zhao Lingshan carefully took out a letter and handed it to Liang Yu. All her previous arrogance was gone. So it's Princess Lingshan. Liang Yu opened the letter, read it carefully, looked up at Zhao Lingshan a couple of times, and said, I also have some friendship with Prince Kang. Prince Kang said in the letter that you want to become my disciple. Yes, this junior very much wants to become a weapon refiner. When I accept disciples, I never ask about their identity or background, I only ask about their talent and aptitude. If you don't meet the requirements, even if you are Prince Kang's daughter, I will not accept you. This junior understands. Zhao Lingshan said nervously, a second-order weapon refiner indeed has the capital to be arrogant. All right, come with me then. Liang Yu nodded. Zhao Lingshan hurriedly followed behind him, and Qin Chen also followed along. Qin Chen thought for a while and then slowly walked over. Chen Yufei said to the rest of the onlookers, Master Liang just said that those who need him to refine treasures can write down what needs to be refined and the price they are willing to pay. Master Liang will choose the orders he wants to fulfill. As soon as Chen Yufei finished speaking, countless customers swarmed over, the scene as lively as a vegetable market. Inside the weapon hall, in a secluded room on the side, Liang Yu led Zhao Lingshan inside. What are you doing here? Qin Chen frowned and scolded when he saw Qin Chen behind him. Silence. Liang Yu glanced at him displeased, scaring Qin Chen into a shiver. He immediately shut his mouth and glared fiercely at Qin Chen. Liang Yu said, to become a weapon refiner, the most important thing is spiritual power talent. Only with strong spiritual power can various inscriptions, talismans, and array patterns be engraved into treasures, allowing ordinary weapons to become treasures. In other words, strong spiritual power is the foundation of becoming a weapon refiner. Prince Kang said in his letter that you have been practicing martial arts for a long time. At the age of 16, you are already a late-stage human realm expert, and the awakened bloodline is also a third-grade bloodline. Therefore, I will not test you on talent anymore. I will only agree to accept you as a disciple if you pass this spiritual power test. Qin Chen glanced at Zhao Lingshan in surprise, his eyes slightly narrowed. This woman is not only as beautiful as an angel, with captivating charm, but her cultivation is also astonishing. A late-stage human realm expert at the age of 16, and she has even awakened a third-grade bloodline. Qin Chen is only 15 this year and is only an early-stage human realm martial artist. This is already considered genius. Zhao Lingshan is only 1 year older than him, but she is 2 levels stronger than him, and her talent is even higher than his. Moreover, she has also awakened a third-grade bloodline. Bloodlines are inherited from ancient times, with varying strengths. Therefore, for ease of classification, bloodline masters have divided all the bloodlines in the world into 9 grades, with 1st grade being the lowest and 9th grade being the highest. A 3rd grade bloodline is already extremely rare in a small place like the Great Qi Kingdom, 1 in 10,000. Hearing Liang Yu affirm her talent, a trace of arrogance appeared on Zhao Lingshan's face. In fact, the reason why she is known as one of the 10 beauties of the royal capital is because she is very beautiful and possesses amazing martial arts talent. In the Tianwu Continent, martial arts are revered. Even if a woman is beautiful, she will not attract people's attention if she does not have strong martial arts talent. Liang Yu frowned and said, hurry up and test your spiritual power. Only then did Zhao Lingshan react to her situation, hurriedly restrained her expression, and followed Liang Yu to a grey stone pillar in the room. Input your spiritual power into this stone pillar in front of you. Yes. Zhao Lingshan's jade-like white and slender hand gently rested on the stone pillar in front of her, continuously injecting spiritual power into the grey stone pillar. Buzz. A milky white light quickly lit up on the surface of the gray stone pillar, slowly rising upwards. As Zhao Lingshan continued to input spiritual power, the white light slowly rose, eventually stopping 2 finger widths below the first mark. Less than first order spiritual power, let go. Liang Yu said indifferently. Zhao Lingshan released her right hand, nervously looking at Liang Yu. Late stage human realm cultivation, less than first order spiritual power, not bad. Liang Yu nodded. Next, we will test your spiritual power talent, that is the most important thing. Liang Yu led Zhao Lingshan to a transparent crystal and said, integrate your perception into this spiritual crystal, stimulate the spiritual power inside, and let me see your spiritual power talent. Zhao Lingshan took a deep breath, her expression slightly nervous, and then came to the transparent crystal and placed her hands on it. Then, she closed her eyes and began to stimulate the spiritual power within. Buzz. A ripple suddenly rippled on the transparent spiritual crystal, and a red halo suddenly rose, making the entire room a brilliant crimson. Immediately afterwards, the crimson slowly changed, turning into orange, and then changing from orange to yellow. But in the end, it still didn't turn yellow, staying at orange. The faint orange light set off Zhao Lingshan, making her radiant and like a goddess. Orange talent. Liang Yu's expression froze, a gleam flashed in his eyes, revealing a look of joy. Qin Chen's eyes also narrowed slightly. The spiritual crystal doesn't test a person's spiritual power intensity, but rather their spiritual power talent. Spiritual power talent is divided into 7 colors: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. The later the color, the higher the spiritual power talent. A weapon refining genius, as long as their spiritual power talent is high, even if their initial spiritual power is 0, they can reach an extremely high level through cultivation and improvement, becoming a powerful weapon refiner. Conversely, even if the current spiritual power is strong, without sufficient spiritual power talent, they can only remain at the current level and cannot continue to improve. Zhao Lingshan's orange spiritual power talent can be considered outstanding. With hard work in the future, becoming a second-order weapon refiner is not a problem, and even becoming a third-order weapon refiner is not without hope. Master Liang, have I passed? Zhao Lingshan looked at Liang Yu and said nervously. Liang Yu revealed a smile and said, you have passed. From today onwards, you will be my, Liang Yu's, 9th disciple. Zhao Lingshan's heart was filled with joy, and she hurriedly bowed and said, disciple greets teacher. Congratulations, Princess Lingshan, on successfully becoming a disciple. Qin Fen clenched his hands and shouted excitedly, his expression excited, as if he himself had succeeded. Thank you, young Master Qin Fen, for accompanying me to the weapon hall. Zhao Lingshan smiled slightly. Qin Fen felt as sweet as honey in his heart and laughed heartily. Princess Lingshan is too polite. It is my honor, Qin Fen's honor, to accompany Princess Lingshan. Liang Yu watched the two chat for a few sentences before saying indifferently, all right, now that the pleasantries are over, you two can leave. Lingshan, come with me. With that, he led Zhao Lingshan towards the inner hall. Your name is Liang Yu. At this time, Qin Chen touched his nose and suddenly spoke. Liang Yu stopped, his brow furrowed, a look of annoyance flashed across his face. Since becoming a weapon refiner, he has rarely heard such direct address. Even those dignitaries in the royal capital would not dare to call him that. Liang Yu coldly looked at Qin Chen and said, which family's brat dares to call me by my name? Qin Chen, what are you doing? Come back here now. Qin Fen trembled and roared at Qin Chen. Then, he anxiously said to Liang Yu, Master Liang, this is my younger brother. He doesn't know the rules. Please forgive him. He didn't want to help Qin Chen, but he felt that if Qin Chen caused Master Liang Yu to vent his anger on their Qin family, it would be troublesome. You probably haven't broken through to become a second-tier weapon refiner for more than a few days, right? Qin Chen crossed his left arm over his chest and stroked his chin with his right hand. What exactly do you want to say? Liang Yu glanced at Qin Chen coldly and said in a deep voice, I don't have time to chat with a brat like you. Get out of the weaponry hall immediately. Qin Chen's attitude made him very unhappy. If it weren't because the other party was a teenager, he would have already lost his temper. Qin Chen, get out of here now. Qin Fen's eyes were gloomy, and his gaze was almost spitting fire. He grabbed Qin Chen's right arm and dragged him out. Pa! Qin Chen's internal true energy rapidly circulated, pouring into his right arm. A powerful force emanated from his arm, and with a slight tremor, he sent Qin Fen flying. You little brat, you actually dare to resist. Qin Fen was instantly sent flying. He felt his 5 fingers go numb and a burst of severe pain. He was shocked and even more furious. Like an enraged lion, he pounced on Qin Chen. Qin Chen didn't move. He lightly shifted his foot and dodged Qin Fen's attack. He said faintly, if you want to break through to become a second-tier weapon refiner, you must refine a second-tier treasure weapon. If I'm not mistaken, the one you refined during the assessment should have been a fire attribute treasure weapon. Liang Yu's expression shook. His impatient expression revealed a hint of shock, and he said in a deep voice, how do you know? I not only know that you refined a fire attribute treasure weapon, but I also know that the main material of this treasure weapon should be crimson flame stone. In order to neutralize the scorching properties of the crimson flame stone and enhance its ductility, you added green ghost stone during the refining process. However, although green ghost stone has the effect of neutralizing crimson flame stone, it is the main material for making ghost poison, and it is most vulnerable to the stimulation of inflammatory substances. Qin Chen shook his head with a look of pity and said, in order to refine a second-tier treasure weapon, you didn't hesitate to poison yourself. You're really brave. If this matter is reported to the Weaponry Hall's rank assessment department, it should affect your rank assessment, right? Liang Yu's body trembled slightly, and a hint of shock flashed in his eyes. Then, his face suddenly turned gloomy. HMPH, nonsense. I don't know what you're talking about. Qin Chen sighed leisurely. Actually, there's nothing wrong with being poisoned by ghost poison. It's a pity that, in order to alleviate the ghost poison, you actually took a special detoxification pill. Hey, the main material of the special detoxification pill is ethereal flower. Ethereal flower is cold in nature. Not only can it not eliminate the ghost poison, but it will also accelerate the development of the ghost poison, allowing the ghost poison to penetrate into the internal organs faster, which is equivalent to chronic suicide. Don't you know that? Oh, I forgot. Qin Chen smiled. You're just a weapon refiner, not an alchemist. It's normal not to know this. Liang Yu's expression was dull, and beads of sweat as big as beans slid down his forehead. The shock in his heart surged like waves, and he stared at Qin Chen with a ferocious gaze. Who exactly are you? A terrifying killing intent swept out from his body. Qin Fen and Zhao Lingshan only felt a chill and their whole bodies turned cold. Only then did they realize that Liang Yu was not only a second-tier weapon refiner, but also a heaven-level expert. Qin Chen, if you continue to talk nonsense, be careful that I report back to father and expel you and your mother from our Qin family. Qin Fen anxiously roared. He knew that Master Liang Yu was clearly angry. Master Liang, please don't be angry. We'll leave now, Qin Fen said anxiously to Liang Yu, his whole body drenched in cold sweat. Now you want to leave. It's too late. Liang Yu moved and instantly arrived in front of Qin Chen. Heaven-level true energy was unleashed, and his right hand was like a net, firmly imprisoning Qin Chen's body as it came down. Before the powerful energy even landed, it had already sent Qin Fen flying away from Qin Chen's side. If I were you, I would never choose to attack. Under the claws, Qin Chen stood still, his body straight as a javelin, and said calmly, when you activate your true energy, do you feel very comfortable in the Tianmen, Baihui, and Zhongshu acupoints? And a soreness in your meridians like ants biting? Liang Yu's body twitched as if he had been electrocuted. His right hand was like it was frozen stiff, unable to come down no matter what. Qin Chen said with a look of pity, it's really a pity. A good weapon refining genius is now going to have his meridians completely destroyed and become a useless person. Liang Yu's eyes were filled with fear, and his whole body trembled. He stammered, He you'd for a long time, but couldn't say a word. Master, what's wrong with you? Zhao Lingshan, sensing something was wrong, walked up in confusion. All of you, get back down. Liang Yu suddenly shouted sharply. Zhao Lingshan paused, somewhat stunned. Didn't you hear me? All of you, Get back down. Liang Yu glanced coldly at Zhao Lingshan and Qin Fen. That gaze was like a tangible substance, causing their bodies to tremble, and they hurriedly bowed and retreated. After the two left, Liang Yu stared at Qin Chen with icy eyes, saying word by word, "Who exactly are you?" Qin Chen said faintly, "Who I am is not important. What's important is that I can save your life." Liang Yu's eyes flickered, and he sneered, "Don't try to scare me." Qin Chen shook his head, helplessly spread his hands, and turned to leave. "Then there's nothing to talk about. I originally wanted to point you in the right direction, but since you insist on being a useless person, then I have no objections. Come and go as you please. Not so easy. If you don't tell me your origins, don't even think about leaving the weaponry hall today." Liang Yu swayed and blocked Qin Chen's path, saying fiercely. Qin Chen sneered. "Every time you circulate your true energy, it will allow the ghost poison to invade your body even more. Looking at the green aura on your face, does even your tailbone acupoint start to hurt now?" Liang Yu's expression instantly looked like he had seen a ghost. His whole body suddenly jumped up, and his body trembled violently. "You have half a month left. Prepare for your afterlife." Qin Chen stepped forward. "Wait, do you really have a way to break it?" Liang Yu said in a trembling voice. In the past few days, he had been suffering from the pain Qin Chen described. In the recent second-tier weapon refiner assessment, he used Crimson Flame Stone to refine a fire attribute treasure weapon, but in order to enhance the plasticity of the Crimson Flame Stone, he secretly added Green Ghost Stone. As a result, the next day, the ghost poison attacked, and his whole body was numb. In order to get rid of the ghost poison, he spent a great price to buy a special detoxification pill. Who knew that after taking it, the ghost poison not only did not improve, but his whole body's meridians started to ache. In recent days, once he activated his true energy, the meridians in his body were as uncomfortable as if 10,000 ants were gnawing on them, and the Tianmen, Baihui, and Zhongshu acupoints were even more painful as if they were being cut by knives. These were nothing, but just now, his tailbone acupoint suddenly started to hurt as well, and the situation was exactly the same as what Qin Chen said. This thoroughly frightened Liang Yu, who now knew that Qin Chen was not speaking falsehoods, and he could no longer maintain his composure. "Please, sir, tell me the method to detoxify the poison, I will be forever grateful." Liang Yu excitedly grabbed Qin Chen's shoulder and said in a trembling voice, his eyes full of pleading. This place was fortunately remote, and no one witnessed this scene. Otherwise, everyone would be greatly surprised to see Liang Yu so earnestly begging a young man. Qin Chen said, "Didn't you say I was alarmist? Why do you believe me now? I was blind and failed to recognize Mount Tai. Please, sir, be magnanimous," Liang Yu said with a fawning smile, but his heart was filled with anger and resentment, as he thought, "I'll get the method to break the poison first, and then see how I deal with you." Qin Chen glanced at Liang Yu, knowing exactly what he was thinking, but only said indifferently, "Let's go." Liang Yu was taken aback. "Go where?" "To your refining room. First refine something for me." Although Liang Yu was surprised, he still walked ahead, leading Qin Chen towards the depths of the artifact hall. As a second-tier refiner, Liang Yu naturally had his own private refining room. Along the way, Liang Yu was respectful to Qin Chen. Many people around them saw this scene and discussed it, wondering who this young man was. "We're here." Before long, Liang Yu led Qin Chen to a room filled with all sorts of refining tools. "May I ask what exactly it is that you want me to refine?" Liang Yu said in a deep voice. Qin Chen took out paper and pen and quickly drew the design of the heavenly meridian divine needles, saying calmly, "I need you to refine 18 divine needles of this size." Liang Yu took the drawing with a nonchalant expression and casually lowered his head to look at it. His initially indifferent expression instantly froze, gradually revealing a hint of surprise, followed by shock, his heart experiencing a huge impact. On the drawing Qin Chen had given him, there was a very slender black needle, 3 inches and 3 in length, spiraling in shape, with every part meticulously detailed, and each part having a different diameter and width. Moreover, the thin needle was covered with various complex inscriptions and runes, dazzling the eye. At first glance, the drawing seemed to be just a thin needle, but upon closer inspection, it was incredibly exquisite, like a work of art, with a difficulty far exceeding that of some second-tier treasures. What shocked Liang Yu even more was Qin Chen's drawing technique, which completely followed the refining structure. Every detail was depicted to the extreme, even more refined than many ancient treasure drawings he had seen. It was practically a textbook-like forging blueprint, without a single flaw. Liang Yu took a deep breath, his shocked gaze receding, and said in a solemn voice, "Although I am a second-tier refiner, the exquisite nature of these divine needles far exceeds that of second-tier treasures. Even third-tier treasures are probably far inferior. How do you expect me to refine them? Would I not think of what you can think of? Don't worry, I will guide you from the side." Liang Yu looked at Qin Chen suspiciously. But Qin Chen's expression was calm, not at all like he was joking, and his heart couldn't help but tremble. He said in a deep voice, "Then what materials should be used for the refining?" "Use the obsidian netherstone you just obtained." "What?" Liang Yu said angrily. "This was entrusted to me by the second young master of Marquis Anping to refine a treasure. If it's used up, how will I explain it to him?" Qin Chen looked at him with a smile and said, "You'll definitely find a way." Liang Yu's expression was gloomy and uncertain, changing several times before he gritted his teeth and said, "How can I trust you?" Qin Chen smiled slightly and slowly spoke out several true qi circulation incantations, saying, "If you circulate your true qi according to the incantations I said, you will know that I am not lying to you." Liang Yu was doubtful, but the true qi in his body circulated according to Qin Chen's incantations, and his body immediately shook. The thick heaven-grade true qi circulated smoothly in his meridians, and at this time, there was not even a trace of the feeling of ants gnawing, and even the pain in the acupoints was relieved a lot. For a moment, Liang Yu even thought that his condition had completely healed. Qin Chen ruthlessly interrupted his fantasy. "This method only alleviates the pain when your condition flares up. It's only a temporary solution. If you want a real cure, I will tell you after you finish your task." "You better not be lying to me." Liang Yu took a deep breath and snorted coldly. The feeling of being controlled by others made him extremely angry, wishing he could chop Qin Chen on the spot. Under Qin Chen's direction, Liang Yu quickly ignited true fire. As a second-tier refiner, Liang Yu's basic skills were quite solid. Without Qin Chen saying much, he had already started heating the obsidian netherstone. The blue-white true fire licked the obsidian netherstone, emitting a palpitating heat. However, after a cup of tea's time, the obsidian netherstone was only slightly red, with no sign of melting at all. Qin Chen frowned. Obsidian netherstone is a top-tier third-tier refining material, belonging to the cold attribute. It would be impossible for Liang Yu's second-tier true fire to melt it in a short time. The efficiency was too slow. Sprinkle some soapstone powder on the obsidian netherstone. At this rate, when will we finish refining it? Qin Chen said impatiently. Soapstone powder. Liang Yu frowned and sneered. The main purpose of soapstone powder is as a catalyst for removing impurities from various mysterious iron. What's the use of sprinkling it on obsidian netherstone? Moreover, obsidian netherstone is a third-tier material. It's normal for the melting speed to be slower. What's the rush? Qin Chen's pupils narrowed, and he said coldly, "Add it when I tell you to add it." Liang Yu's old face flushed red with anger, almost dripping blood, and he said angrily, "Fine, you're the one who told me to add it. Don't blame me if the obsidian netherstone is ruined." He angrily took out some soapstone powder and sprinkled it on the obsidian netherstone according to the method Qin Chen instructed. A scene that made him unbelievable happened. When the white soapstone powder fell on the obsidian netherstone, which was only slightly red, quickly lit up, and it actually melted little by little at a speed visible to the naked eye, slowly turning into a liquid. This scene shocked Liang Yu so much that his eyes widened, as if he had seen a ghost. Having been a refiner for so long, this was the first time he had heard that soapstone powder could speed up the melting of obsidian netherstone. "What are you doing standing there? Hurry up and remove the impurities." Qin Chen's stern shout suddenly interrupted Liang Yu's thoughts, causing him to instantly come back to his senses. Qin Chen had an unsatisfied expression and quickly came to the refining platform, picked up the array pattern pen, and quickly carved array patterns. His movements were as smooth as flowing water, and a complex and mysterious six-pointed star array pattern quickly appeared on the array pattern platform. The entire array pattern was very smooth, mysterious and obscure. Each stroke was like art, making Liang Yu's eyes shine with brilliance, and his heart was greatly impacted. In just a dozen or so breaths, Qin Chen had carved an extremely complex array pattern on the array pattern platform. The entire array pattern dazzled Liang Yu, and he couldn't tell what the function of this array pattern was. Too slow. You activate the array patterns, I'll remove the impurities. Qin Chen coldly shouted again, his hands rapidly forming hand seals, and strands of extremely weak spiritual power entered the melted dark netherstone, vibrating at an extremely high frequency. Immediately afterward, dust-like impurities floated away, while the liquid substance formed from the dark netherstone became increasingly bright and lustrous, gradually changing from its original dark color to a bright black, until finally the sphere resembled a mirror, clearly reflecting human faces. Liang Yu, who was standing nearby, was already dumbfounded. Qin Chen's spiritual power clearly hadn't even reached the first level, being inferior to his own second-level spiritual power by a distance of 100,000 miles, but his purification speed was several times faster, completely overturning his understanding of refining. Only after Qin Chen finished purifying did Liang Yu hurriedly begin activating the array patterns. Buzz. The array patterns previously inscribed by Qin Chen rapidly came to life, and the patterns lit up like neon lights, constantly being illuminated, as a unique force field rippled throughout the refining room. Qin Chen pointed at the array pattern platform, and his spiritual power intervened in the formation. The liquid sphere formed from the dark netherstone seemed to be drawn by the power of the formation, autonomously entering the formation and suspending in the air above the dazzling array, constantly trembling. The frequency of the dark netherstone liquid's pulsation grew higher and higher, and sharp spikes protruded from the originally smooth sphere. Qin Chen carefully used his spiritual power to control the rhythm of the dark netherstone, allowing it to pulsate. The spikes continuously spread, and Qin Chen used his spiritual power to control the growth. Countless tiny spiral patterns naturally grew on the spikes, and the entire process didn't require Qin Chen's deliberate manipulation at all, relying entirely on subtle guidance with his spiritual power. Liang Yu controlled the operation of the array patterns while staring blankly, his eyes almost popping out of their sockets. Qin Chen's refining process was completely different from normal treasure weapon refining, and was difficult to understand, like reading a celestial book. Divide. Suddenly, Qin Chen shouted lowly, divine light blooming in his pupils, and he extended his right index finger to gently tap the dark netherstone material. With a poof sound, the dark netherstone material suddenly exploded, transforming into 18 fine, glittering needle-like rays, bursting forth with dazzling light. The 18 divine needles gently landed in Qin Chen's hand, each one crystal clear, covered with spiral patterns and talisman array patterns, as if naturally formed, skillfully crafted, and breathtaking. Finally refined, Qin Chen exhaled a long breath, wiped the sweat from his forehead, and carefully wrapped the 18 divine needles, storing them in his bag. Using his rich experience from his previous life, coupled with Liang Yu's assistance, he finally refined the heavenly meridian divine needles, which even ordinary third-level refiners might not be able to produce, and a sense of satisfaction arose in his heart. Qin Chen glanced at Liang Yu, who was in a daze, and said faintly, "Take 2 liang of crescent moon leaves, add 3 stalks of aloe flowers, place them in rootless water and simmer over a gentle fire for 2 hours. Bathe for half an hour every night at midnight, and after 7 days, the charm poison will naturally be untie." Liang Yu was still in shock from the entire refining process. By the time he came back to his senses, Qin Chen had already left the refining room. Just who is this child? Why does he possess such amazing refining skills? Unfathomable, simply unfathomable. Liang Yu's heart was filled with incomparable shock. Since becoming a refiner, this was the first time he felt so ignorant. That intense shock caused a trace of worship and admiration to arise in his heart towards Qin Chen, and even he himself couldn't believe that he would have such a thought. This child must never be made an enemy. Liang Yu took a deep breath. The previous resentment and indignation had long since completely disappeared, and he even had the urge to take Qin Chen as his teacher. As long as he mastered the techniques Qin Chen had used earlier, he was certain that he would reach a level in refining that he couldn't even imagine. Inside the refinement hall, Qin Fen and Zhao Lingshan, who had been chased out by Liang Yu, were looking dazed and at a loss. Then, they saw Qin Chen walking out. Qin Chen, what exactly did you say to Master Liang? Why is Master Liang so angry? Qin Fen quickly came in front of Qin Chen, roaring angrily. Qin Chen glanced at him, then directly ignored him and walked towards the outside of the refinement hall. Damn it! Qin Fen was furious. Qin Chen's repeated contempt completely enraged him. His figure leaped, his face twisted, and he threw a punch at Qin Chen. Stop! Liang Yu, who hurriedly walked out of the refinement hall, saw this scene, his expression greatly changed, and he roared in anger. Boom! An invisible energy swept out, slamming into Qin Fen's body, instantly sending him flying to the ground, in an extremely miserable state. Master! Zhao Lingshan hurriedly went forward. Liang Yu ignored her, directly came in front of Qin Fen, narrowed his eyes, and angrily said, HMPH, this place is the refinement hall. You casually take action. Are you disregarding the rules of my refinement hall? Liang Yu's gaze was ice cold, and his body exuded a substantial killing intent. Isn't that the second master of the Qin family? How did he offend Master Liang? Daring to take action in the refinement hall, does he not want to live? He. Although Marquis Anping holds the official position of Zhonglang General, the refinement hall will not give him Marquis Anping's face. At this time, many people were coming and going in the hall on the first floor. Hearing the commotion here, they immediately stopped their footsteps, and watched with surprise, waiting for a good show. Qin Fen was knocked to the ground by Liang Yu, his body aching, but the fear in his heart was even more intense than the pain of his body. He trembled, quickly flipped over and stood up, and said in panic, Master Liang, I did not intend to do this. I only saw Qin Chen daring to be disrespectful to you, Master, so I wanted to capture this person. Please forgive me, Master. Master, rest assured. After returning, I will definitely let my father severely punish Qin Chen, and make him personally bear thorns and beg for forgiveness in front of you, Master. Liang Yu coldly looked at him, and said in a deep voice, was that person just now from your Qin family? Qin Fen thought that Qin Chen had offended Liang Yu, and hurriedly explained, Master Liang, although Qin Chen is a member of my Qin family, he is my aunt's illegitimate son, a wild child. My father wholeheartedly wants to drive this little beast out of the Qin mansion, so his actions have nothing to do with our Qin family. He was resentful in his heart, gritting his teeth, and cursed Qin Chen 18 times in secret. So it was him. Liang Yu pondered slightly. He had, of course, heard of Qin Yuqi's matter. Master Liang, I will now bring that little beast back to you and give him a severe lesson. Qin Fen said, about to rush out. No need. I have no interest in knowing about your Qin family's affairs, and I don't want to have any connection with your Qin family. You go. Don't let me see you again. As for your treasure weapon, HMPH, you took action in my refinement hall. Not punishing you is already merciful, so don't even think about getting it. Scram. Master, Qin Fen was stunned. What did Master Liang Yu mean? Wasn't he going to refine a treasure weapon for him? He had clearly agreed just now. You what? You haven't scrammed yet. Do you want me to personally throw you out? Liang Yu narrowed his eyes, and a trace of killing intent was revealed. Yes. I'll scram immediately. Amidst the surprised discussions from the surroundings, Qin Fen left the refinement hall with a flushed face, full of shame and indignation. Coming to the outside of the refinement hall, the killing intent on Qin Fen's body was substantial, and he roared in his heart with a twisted expression, Damn Qin Chen, if it weren't for him, how could I have been humiliated by Master Liang Yu, and even lost a treasure weapon? You wait for me, I must avenge this humiliation. Qin Fen gnashed his teeth in hatred, and a look of resentment flashed in his eyes. Inside the weaponry hall, Liang Yu snorted coldly, but he was puzzled as to why Qin Chen, clearly a genius in weapon refinement, held such a low position in the Qin family. However, since Qin Chen himself hadn't brought it up, he naturally wouldn't be foolish enough to interfere in Qin Chen's family affairs. From now on, stay away from the Qin Fen, or I will immediately expel you from my tutelage, Liang Yu said coldly to Zhao Lingshan. Yes. Disciple will no longer have any contact with the Qin family, Zhao Lingshan didn't dare to retort. As for Qin Chen, you can still get to know him. This person is extraordinary and has a boundless future, Liang Yu thought of the previous refinement, still feeling a sense of trembling. Zhao Lingshan was stunned, her face filled with confusion. This seemed different from what she had imagined. Could it be that Master wasn't making her avoid the Qin family because Qin Chen had angered him? The celestial meridian needle has already been refined. I must find a place to reshape my meridians as soon as possible. The longer I delay, the worse it will be for me. Qin Chen walked alone on the road, pondering to himself. Returning to the Qin mansion is definitely out of the question. His and his mother's status in the Qin mansion is too low. Madame Zhao might send someone to make trouble at any time. Once they disturb the process of reshaping his meridians, the consequences would be unimaginable. After thinking for a long time, Qin Chen finally thought of a place, the Heavenly Star Academy. The Heavenly Star Academy is a place of learning for the sons and daughters of princes and nobles, as well as commoner geniuses, with specialized training rooms and guaranteed freedom from disturbance. I'll go back to the academy. With that thought, Qin Chen went straight towards the Heavenly Star Academy. The Heavenly Star Academy is located in the center of the royal capital, only a few blocks away from the weaponry hall. A quarter of an hour later, Qin Chen arrived at the academy. The bustling crowd, towering buildings, and youthful students all gave Qin Chen a sense of novelty. However, Qin Chen didn't have time to appreciate it. For him, every minute now was extremely precious. He had to seize every moment he could save. However, there was someone who, at this moment, came to disturb him. Yo, isn't this Qin Chen, the bloodline pig, with a great reputation? After being beaten up by your grandpa last time, you're hopping around so quickly again. Your vitality is quite strong. A harsh, mocking voice rang out. 4 16 or 17-year-old youths emerged from the small woods by the roadside, blocking Qin Chen with unfriendly expressions. The leader, wearing brocade robes, with a square face and large ears, and an arrogant demeanor, was none other than Wei Zhen, the young master of the Marquis of Wei Qi's family, who had knocked Qin Chen unconscious in the duel a few days ago. The Marquis of Wei Qi held considerable power in the court, so Wei Zhen was naturally followed by a group of cronies, all sons of officials from the Great Qi Kingdom, who often committed evil deeds and provoked trouble in the academy by virtue of their status. However, although Wei Zhen was tyrannical in the academy, his martial arts talent was also quite astonishing. He was only a few months older than Qin Chen, but he was already a mid-stage human realm martial artist and had awakened a second-grade bloodline. During the duel with Qin Chen last time, he had been hiding his mid-stage human realm cultivation and suddenly launched a sneak attack, knocking Qin Chen off the dueling platform with serious injuries. He could be described as extremely sinister. Moreover, he also had an older brother in the advanced class who was about to enter the Earth realm and graduate from the Heavenly Star Academy. Therefore, he acted so arrogantly and domineeringly. If it had been before, Qin Chen would have been angered by such words and would have fought the other party regardless of the consequences. But at this moment, he directly ignored the arrogant Wei Zhen and his companions, treating them as air, not even looking at them, and bypassed them from the side. Wei Zhen was stunned, his face changed, and a cold glint flashed in his eyes. After being beaten up by him so badly, this Qin Chen dared to ignore him. Hadn't he learned his lesson yet? It seemed that he had been too merciful before and hadn't beaten this guy to death. He gave a look, and the 3 lackeys beside him immediately grinned and rushed up, blocking Qin Chen once again. Bloodline pig, what's the rush? Come, let's practice with us brothers. The 3 of them approached Qin Chen with malicious smirks, clenching their fists. Wei Zhen, what do you guys want to do? Suddenly, a loud shout came from behind, and 2 teenagers ran over, blocking Qin Chen with angry expressions. At this time, many students gathered by the woods to watch the commotion, pointing and whispering. Wei Zhen's face darkened, and he said sinisterly, Lin Tian, Zhang Ying, this matter has nothing to do with you. Get out of here. HMPH. Wei Zhen, we haven't settled the score with you for hurting Chen Shao last time. With us here today, you can forget about touching Chen Shao, the teenagers called Lin Tian and Zhang Ying shouted angrily. Then, they said to Qin Chen, Chen Shao, you go first. They had heard that Qin Chen had almost died after being knocked unconscious by Wei Zhen last time, and they were very worried about Qin Chen. Qin Chen felt a strange sensation in his heart. Lin Tian and Zhang Ying were his best friends in the Heavenly Star Academy. Among them, Lin Tian and Zhang Ying even recognized Qin Chen as their boss, calling him Chen Shao. They were Qin Chen's rare loyal followers in the academy. However, having experienced Fang Xiaoyu's betrayal in his previous life, Qin Chen couldn't help but feel uncomfortable about so-called brotherhood. Wei Zhen was furious and sneered, Lin Tian, Zhang Ying, it seems you're determined to refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Very well, I didn't teach you a lesson last time, so I'll beat you two up together this time. Get him. With a loud roar from Wei Zhen, his three lackeys, who had been waiting in the wings, rushed forward at the first moment. Two of them pounced on Lin Tian and Zhang Ying respectively, while the other pounced on Qin Chen. The cultivation levels of the five were all at the early stage of the human realm, belonging to the disciples of the Academy's intermediate class, and their strength could be said to be evenly matched. Seeing this, Zhang Ying's face changed drastically. While blocking his opponent, he also reached out to stop the other opponent who was pouncing on Qin Chen. HMPH, Zhang Ying, you can barely protect yourself, yet you dare to be distracted. Then I'll settle the score with you first. Wei Zhen sneered, his eyes sinister. He leaped up and punched Zhang Ying's fist. Wei Zhen was a mid-stage human realm martial artist, and with one punch, Zhang Ying immediately groaned in pain and was sent flying. His right hand was in severe pain and almost broken. Zhang Ying. Lin Tian's face changed drastically. He wanted to go forward to support, but was stopped by the other three. Two fists struck him, and a trace of blood immediately spilled from the corner of his mouth. He staggered back 3 steps, his aura weak. Chen Shao, run quickly. Even at this time, Lin Tian and Zhang Ying were still concerned about Qin Chen. Hee, where can he run to? I'll beat you two flat first, then teach him a lesson, Wei Zhen laughed hideously. HMPH. Qin Chen's eyes turned cold. Although he felt awkward about brotherhood, it didn't mean that others could bully his brothers at will. With a cold snort, Qin Chen suddenly stepped forward, entering the fray. Ha ha, this kid is looking for death. Let's grant his wish. A burly, dark-skinned youth sneered, throwing a punch towards Qin Chen's face. Another youth beside him also crept closer to Qin Chen with a sinister smile, suddenly kicking towards his groin. This kick was accompanied by a sharp whistling sound, the force of the wind howling. If it connected, it would likely result in the severing of his lineage, making it extremely vicious. Chen Shao, be careful. Lin Tian and Zhang Ying both cried out in alarm, but it was already too late for them to rush forward and help. Qin Chen was only at the initial stage of the human realm, and he hadn't fully recovered from his illness. How could he withstand the attacks of 2 warriors of the same level? Just when everyone thought Qin Chen would be instantly knocked down and scream in agony. Get lost. Qin Chen's expression turned cold, and with a thunderous shout, he rooted his feet to the ground and leaned forward with his shoulder. His body was like a swimming fish, suddenly crashing into the arms of the burly youth, his elbow landing perfectly on the youth's chest. From another angle, it looked as if the burly youth had thrown a punch and then thrown himself onto Qin Chen's elbow. Immediately after, Qin Chen used his left foot as a pivot, quickly turning around. As his true energy spewed out, dust on the ground rose, forming a vortex, and his right leg lifted like lightning. Ah! Ouch! 2 miserable screams rang out. The scene of Qin Chen falling that everyone had imagined did not happen. Instead, the burly youth and the other youth were howling in pain, rolling on the ground like gourds, their foreheads covered in cold sweat. Especially the youth who had attempted the lineage-severing kick. His own foot had kicked into empty air, while Qin Chen's right leg had solidly struck his groin. The muffled sound made everyone watching feel a chill down below and tremble all over. With such a solid hit, his manhood was probably ruined. The remaining youth on the side trembled, his legs shaking, his eyes filled with fear. Qin Chen stepped forward and slapped out his hand. With a smack, the youth was sent flying like a rag doll, landing on the ground in a sorry state, unable to even groan in pain. You little bastard, you actually dare to hit people. Wei Zhen, after a moment of stunned silence, roared in anger, his voice shrill. Little bastard, I didn't kill you last time. It seems I was too merciful. Wei Zhen's face was contorted with rage as he lunged forward. With a roar, his hands snaked out like venomous snakes, his fingers directly stabbing towards Qin Chen's chest. The tips of his fingers emitted a sharp whistling sound, like the fangs of a venomous snake, rapidly approaching Qin Chen's face. So fast, many of the students on the field cried out in alarm. Almost all the students at the initial stage of the human realm were unable to clearly see Wei Zhen's movements. Hee. This move of mine is the yellow rank high-grade finger technique, Heavenly Evil Finger. Although I've only learned the first move, Evil Fang guides the way, it's more than enough to cripple you, Wei Zhen said with a sinister laugh. He could already imagine Qin Chen's fate after this finger strike, blood flowing everywhere and instantly collapsing to the ground. Thinking of this, he was almost orgasmic with excitement. But, just as Wei Zhen's fingers were about to pierce Qin Chen, his arm suddenly froze in midair, unable to stab forward no matter how hard he tried. Qin Chen's strong and forceful left hand had already firmly gripped Wei Zhen's wrist, as if it were made of iron. No matter how hard Wei Zhen struggled, it wouldn't budge. What's going on? Wei Zhen's expression was one of shock and anger. He was just about to increase the circulation of his true energy when... Bang! A sharp pain suddenly came from his chest. He screamed miserably, and his entire body flew out. This unexpected scene left everyone dumbfounded. A piece of trash like you dares to shout in front of me, Qin Chen said with a look of disdain. His condescending gaze deeply stimulated Wei Zhen's heart. Little bastard, I'm going to break your limbs and make you kneel down and beg me. Wei Zhen's face flushed red. How could he endure such humiliation? He endured the pain and jumped up, shaking his body. A strange power permeated his body, as if a mysterious aura was awakening within him. The power of bloodline. Wei Zhen is only at the middle stage of the human realm, yet he can already activate the power of his bloodline. Unbelievable. Qin Chen is in trouble now. Amidst the exclamations of the crowd, Wei Zhen's face was contorted with rage. He leaped into the air and sneered, "That's right. It's the power of my Wei family's bloodline, raging bull charge. Lie down for me." Wei Zhen roared and punched towards Qin Chen's head. A faint red glow surrounded the surface of his fist, its terrifying power suffocating. The intense pressure caused everyone to be shocked, their hair standing on end. Chen Xiao, Lin Tian and Zhang Ying cried out in alarm, about to rush forward. Although they were no match for Wei Zhen either, the three of them joining forces could at least entangle him for a while. If Qin Chen faced him alone, a fracture would be a minor issue, his life would be in question. Qin Chen seemed unable to resist Wei Zhen's punch, swaying unsteadily, when suddenly he raised his foot. Bang! A muffled sound entered everyone's ears, and then they saw Wei Zhen's flying body, as if guided by a ghost, crashing into Qin Chen's toe. Moreover, the location was his groin, a solid and intimate contact. Ouch! A chilling scream suddenly erupted. Wei Zhen desperately clutched his groin with both hands, his facial features twisted together. The miserable wail almost pierced eardrums, and tears and snot streamed down his face flushed red like boiled pig liver. Waves of piercing pain came from below, and what frightened him even more was that something seemed to have been shattered down there. This is too tragic. Everyone present had strange expressions, as if constipated, feeling a chill down below. They subconsciously took a few steps back. They had also heard the cracking sound. It was simply lineage severing. Little bastard, Wei Zhen inhaled a few breaths of cold air, his voice trembling. His face was gloomy, almost dripping with blood. Enduring the pain, he lunged towards Qin Chen like a mad dog, his right fist slamming down frantically from the side. He wouldn't be satisfied unless he severely punished Qin Chen. Whoosh! This punch was thrown out. The power of the fist was like a mountain, the hurricane howling, its power even greater than before, causing everyone's expression to change drastically. Wei Zhen's strength was indeed not to be underestimated. Still unrepentant, Qin Chen's gaze turned cold. He stepped forward, his right foot raised again, aimed directly at Wei Zhen's groin. Wei Zhen's face changed drastically. He hurriedly shifted his position in the air, but Qin Chen's right leg trembled slightly, floating uncertainly, as if it had enveloped all his escape routes, causing him to discover in horror that no matter how he dodged, it was useless, like a naked lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Bang! Wei Zhen watched helplessly as Qin Chen's right leg, without deviation, once again kicked heavily on his vital route. The muffled sound caused everyone present to tremble, their bodies chilled. Awoo! 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 Wei Zhen's features instantly contorted into a crumpled rag, his eyes nearly bursting out of their sockets as he lay on the ground, wailing miserably, a sound truly heartbreaking to hear. At this point, even an idiot would realize something was wrong. What's going on? This is too bizarre. Wei Zhen is a mid-stage human-level martial artist and has awakened his bloodline power. How could he have bumped into Qin Chen's leg twice? It's uncanny. The onlookers wore expressions of astonishment, muttering strangely. Chen Xiao, you. Lin Tian and Zhang Ying were also dumbfounded, overjoyed beyond words. You little bastard, just you wait. Don't let me get the chance, or I'll make you regret it. Wei Zhen writhed on the ground in pain, taking a long time to catch his breath. His eyes, filled with resentment, stared fixedly at Qin Chen, wishing he could tear him to pieces. Qin Chen, who had already turned to leave, suddenly turned back. His icy gaze made Wei Zhen shudder. Dare to curse me again, and I'll kill you, Qin Chen said, enunciating each word clearly. His voice was chilling, as if it came from the depths of the nine hells. Wei Zhen had originally wanted to burst into a torrent of abuse, but for some reason, after seeing Qin Chen's gaze, he couldn't help but shiver, the remaining insults failing to materialize, his body trembling uncontrollably. Qin Chen sneered, then suddenly turned around, striding away from the scene, leaving the group of students dumbfounded. Watching Qin Chen's figure disappear from sight, Wei Zhen and the others finally snapped out of the daze. That little bastard! Wei Zhen gasped for breath, a sinister glint flashing in his eyes. What exactly was going on today? Why had Qin Chen, who had been brutally beaten and nearly killed by him on the dueling stage not long ago, suddenly improved so much in strength? Wei Zhen recalled the previous exchange and couldn't help but tremble inwardly. Qin Chen's two kicks were like divine strokes, his superb technique completely manipulating him, unlike anything a human-level early-stage martial artist could unleash. Big brother, are you all right? Wei Zhen's three lackeys scrambled to their feet, looking terrified. Do you think I'm all right? Hurry up and help me to the treatment room, my precious. Wei Zhen felt his shattered testicles and howled in pain once more. His eyes filled with venom as he roared inwardly, Qin Chen, you just wait. Wei Zhen, will definitely avenge this. Having shaken off Wei Zhen and his cronies, Qin Chen strode towards the cultivation room, with Lin Tian and Zhang Ying quickly catching up. Chen Xiao, are you okay? Those moves just now were so awesome. Lin Tian and Zhang Ying said excitedly, still immersed in Qin Chen's display of divine power. Are you two all right? Qin Chen asked, looking at them with concern. We're fine, this was so satisfying. I don't think Wei Zhen and the others will dare to trouble us again. Lin Tian said, beaming. After the excitement, Zhang Ying couldn't help but worry, Wei Zhen is the son of Marquis Weiqi. Chen Xiao beat him up like that, won't there be any trouble? HMPH, what trouble could there be? Lin Tian sneered, fights between students are perfectly normal. As long as no one dies, the academy won't interfere. Marquis Weiqi can't say anything either. Last time, Chen Xiao was ambushed by Wei Zhen on the dueling stage and nearly beaten to death, and the academy didn't do anything then either. Zhang Ying still looked worried, Marquis Weiqi and the academy have no reason to take action. I'm worried about Wei Zhen's older brother, Wei Zhen. Him. A trace of gravity appeared on Lin Tian's face as well. Wei Zhen was 2 years older than his younger brother, Wei Zhen, and was a disciple in the academy's advanced class, a peak human-level late-stage expert, only 1 step away from entering the Earth level. He was a prominent figure in the academy. He shouldn't take action, right? Lin Qian said anxiously. Wei Zhen was much more terrifying than his younger brother, Wei Zhen, and the students in the academy were all wary of him. Qin Chen looked at the two who were worried about him, feeling a warmth in his heart. He smiled and said, "If Wei Zhen dares to call for reinforcements, I'll beat his older brother too." Hiss. Lin Qian and Zhang Ying gasped, both looking at Qin Chen in astonishment. How had Chen Xiao changed so much in just a few days, both in strength and temperament, causing a sense of worship to rise from the depths of their hearts? The three exchanged a few words and soon arrived at the academy's cultivation tower. The towering cultivation tower soared into the clouds. Qin Chen entered it, and immediately the place was bustling with noise. Tianxing Academy was the #1 academy in the Darky Kingdom. In addition to Wei Zhen, Lin Qian, Zhang Ying, and other sons of royal capital officials and nobles, there were also many talented disciples from all over the country. Having finally been admitted to Tianxing Academy, they were naturally reluctant to give up this great opportunity, and many people would soak in the cultivation tower whenever they had the chance. As a result, the room slots in the academy's cultivation tower were always overcrowded, requiring queuing. Hey, isn't that Qin Chen, who was beaten unconscious by Wei Zhen on the dueling stage a few days ago? I heard he was almost dead. It's only been a few days. His injuries have actually healed. Shush. Keep your voice down. He's the nephew of Marquis Anping and the grandson of Prince Dingwu. Be careful he doesn't cause you trouble. HMPH. I'm not afraid of him. He's just a bastard, and I heard he's almost 16 years old and hasn't awakened his bloodline yet. If he doesn't pass the academy assessment soon, he'll probably be the first person to be expelled from Tianxing Academy due to bloodline issues. That's strange. Those who can become martial artists, even if their bloodline is poor, can at least awaken a first-grade bloodline. It's really rare to not be able to awaken a bloodline at all. Hee. I heard he's a bastard. The inheritance of bloodline comes from the previous generation. Could it be that his cheap old man? In the crowd, many people whispered when they saw Qin Chen. Qin Chen's special status and the fact that he had not yet awakened his bloodline had already made him a household name in the academy. Especially some commoner disciples, who were already very hostile towards the children of the powerful, Qin Chen's matter became the object of the gossip. What are you guys talking about? Lin Qian and Zhang Ying were furious when they heard the whispers and were about to rush forward. Qin Chen stopped the two of them, leisurely glanced at the few people, and then leisurely walked forward, directly cutting in front of the few people in the line. What are you doing? Why are you cutting in line? Don't you know about first come, first served? Several people immediately shouted in dissatisfaction. Qin Chen glanced at the few people indifferently, his cold gaze carrying a chilling chill that made the shouts of the few people stop abruptly. If I hear any more gossip in the future, you few shouldn't stay in Tianxing Academy. Qin Chen said lightly. His voice was calm, but it contained an unquestionable aura. The faces of the few people were pale, and a sense of fear rose inexplicably in their hearts, but under the gaze of so many people, they were somewhat unable to save face, muttering, "Why?" Before they could finish speaking, they were interrupted fiercely by Lin Qian and Zhang Ying, HMPH, still talking nonsense. Believe it or not, we'll beat you up. The faces of the few people changed drastically, and they were silent, no longer daring to speak. Tianxing Academy prohibits killing, but it does not prohibit fighting, so there are countless students fighting privately in the academy. As for the dueling stage, it was a place where you didn't have to be responsible even if you beat someone to death. If the two sides really clashed, Lin Qian and the others, these children of the powerful, would be fine. Even if they were expelled from the academy, it would not matter, but the future of these commoner disciples would be completely over. Creak. At that moment, the training room in front of Qin Chen opened, and three teenagers who had just finished their training walked out. Chen Xiao, how about the three of us train together this time? Each training room in the training tower was 10 square meters in size. Some civilian children from poor families would often train together to save money. Lin Qian and Zhang Ying both had some influence in the court, so naturally they were not short of money. They did this mainly to take care of Qin Chen. You two should switch to another training room. I'll be training for a longer time this time. Qin Chen naturally wouldn't agree to their request. This time, he wanted to rebuild his meridians and couldn't allow any disturbance. Lin Qian and Zhang Ying didn't say much and quickly went to queue in front of another training room. With a crack sound, the training room door closed. The faces of the few people who had been waiting at the door for a long time turned green. Entering the training room, Qin Chen immediately began to cultivate. My chi pool has already formed, and my meridians are fixed. If I want to reopen the 12 meridians, I must destroy them first and then rebuild them. Qin Chen took off his shirt, revealing his thin body, and then quickly took out the 18 heaven meridian divine needles he had just refined. He gently pinched one of them with the index and middle fingers of his right hand, focusing his gaze on his lower abdomen, and like lightning, he pierced this divine needle into the Schenk acupoint located at his navel. Immediately afterward, he flicked his hands repeatedly, turning into a phantom, and 2 more heaven meridian divine needles pierced into the Guanyuan and Zhengzhou acupoints below his lower abdomen. The 3 heaven meridian divine needles formed a triangle, protecting the dantian 3 inches below the lower abdomen, which was where the chi-si was located. The 3 half-foot-long divine needles were almost entirely inserted into the body, which made people shudder just looking at them. The acupoints pierced by the heaven meridian divine needles immediately transmitted bursts of burning pain. Qin Chen took a deep breath, adjusted his condition, and a trace of determination flashed in his eyes. He picked up another divine needle again and forcefully pierced it into his dantian. Puff! The pigeon egg-sized chi pool in Qin Chen's body was instantly pierced, and the true chi contained within it instantly scurried around like dragons and snakes, rampaging wildly. If a strong person saw this scene, they would be shocked. Self-destruction of the chi pool was simply suicide for a martial artist. Pa! 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 As expected, the 7 meridians that Qin Chen had opened were instantly shattered by the terrifying true chi, leaving them tattered and bloody, as if countless steel knives were frantically twisting in his body. If it were other martial artists, they would definitely not be able to endure such intense pain and would have fainted from the pain. Qin Chen was just like a rock, sitting cross-legged in the training room, allowing the intense pain to stimulate his nerves, his expression unchanged, only large beads of cold sweat constantly falling from his forehead. Bang! Suddenly, he slammed his hands on the ground. The remaining 14 divine needles instantly flew into the air. Swish! 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 A burst of bright light suddenly erupted in Qin Chen's eyes. His hands were as fast as lightning, instantly turning into afterimages, dazzling people and making it impossible to see clearly. In an instant, his hands stopped, and all 14 flying divine needles were pierced into various parts of his body. One of them pierced directly into the Tianmen acupoint from the top of his head, and another pierced into the heart acupoint in his chest. The remaining 12 were pierced into the most important nodes in the 12 meridians of his body. I can open up the meridians now. Qin Chen was trembling all over from the pain, his whole body was soaked in cold sweat, and the capillaries under the surface of his skin ruptured, seeping out traces of blood from his pores. But Qin Chen gritted his teeth and silently endured this torture-like pain. Only by enduring the bitterest of the bitter can one become the best of men. Which of the martial emperors under the heavens has not put in 100 times the hard work of ordinary people to achieve 100 times the achievement? There is never a shortcut on the path to becoming a strong person. Feeling immersed in his body, Qin Chen struggled to gather the trace of rampaging true chi and forcefully poured it into the first meridian of his body. Qila. That meridian was instantly torn apart by the violent true chi, leaving it bloody and mangled. A sharp pain came from within his body, as if the meridian was about to be torn apart, causing Qin Chen to tremble all over. If ordinary people encountered such a situation, they would definitely not be able to persevere. However, Qin Chen gritted his teeth and persevered with a strong will, allowing blood beads to seep out of his pores continuously, never giving up. The meridians opened up by this body were too weak and too thin. If I want to achieve accomplishments that surpass others, I must lay a solid foundation. After a few breaths, Qin Chen finally completely opened up the first meridian, and its width was more than twice that of the original. Next, Qin Chen did not stop and controlled the true chi to rush into the second meridian. The third one. The fourth one. Qin Chen completed the baptism of all 7 meridians that had been opened in one go. At this moment, he had become a bloody man. But Qin Chen knew that only half of his task was completed, and the truly arduous part had not even begun. He adjusted his breathing, mobilized that trace of true qi, and slammed it toward the location of his 8th meridian. Pili-pala. A sound like splitting bamboo came, and Qin Chen instantly opened up most of the 8th meridian. However, soon, this trace of true qi encountered resistance. Just then, buzz. A mysterious power suddenly rose from the heaven meridian. Divine needle inserted into the meridian, merged into this trace of true qi, and instantly opened up Qin Chen's 8th meridian. The original pain suddenly disappeared, and an unprecedented sense of comfort spread throughout Qin Chen's body. The 8th meridian is open, next is the 9th. Qin Chen's expression was indifferent, neither sad nor happy, only his eyes were incomparably bright, firm and decisive, like the stars in the night sky. Relying on his experience from his previous life, after half an hour, Qin Chen had fully opened up his 9th, 10th, and 11th meridians. Having lost his qi pool, Qin Chen's true qi was used up bit by bit, but whenever the true qi was not enough, a force would always be born from the heaven meridian. Divine needles inserted into his body, assisting Qin Chen in opening up the meridians. After a period of hard work, Qin Chen finally reached the last, 12th meridian. This was a chasm that countless geniuses in the 10,000-year history of the Tianwu Continent had been unable to cross. At this time, Qin Chen was covered in blood, and his original appearance could not be seen at all. The severe pain made his mind drowsy, and he just wanted to fall asleep, but he gritted his teeth and persevered desperately. Because he knew that once he fell asleep, it would be completely over. Condensing those faint wills, Qin Chen operated the secret technique in the 9-star God Emperor art and began to impact his last meridian. At first, the process of the impact was quite smooth. However, as time passed, the remaining last bit of true qi became weaker and weaker, gradually losing its strength, and the speed of the impact became slower and slower, and it became more and more powerless. Seeing that the last trace of true energy was about to be exhausted. No, I can't stop. I definitely can't stop. For me, for my mother, to once again step into the martial domain, to seek revenge on that pair of despicable people, how can I, Qin Chen, fall in this place? Break. Break for me. Break. 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 Qin Chen roared silently in his heart, his strong will like a terrifying wave. Hope is right in front of him, he must succeed in building his meridians. Qin Chen did his best, mobilizing all his mental strength, along with that trace of true energy, and fiercely charged towards the final juncture of the 12th meridian. Boom! As if a thunderbolt struck on a clear day, a deafening sound instantly resounded in Qin Chen's mind. The rumbling sound almost made him faint, and his entire mind was buzzing. If it weren't for the heavenly meridian divine needles guarding the heavenly gate and heart aperture, this attack would have definitely caused him to lose his mind and be shocked into an idiot. After the violent roar, a cool sensation emanated from Qin Chen's body. The original severe pain gradually disappeared, replaced by a tingling sensation. Puff, 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 puff. The 18 heavenly meridian divine needles inserted into Qin Chen's body finally exhausted their last trace of power, turning into powder and scattering outwards. Ha ha! I succeeded. I finally opened up the 12 meridians. When the moment of success arrived, no one could understand the excitement in Qin Chen's heart. In his previous life, he fell in the martial domain, and in this life, he has returned. He has endured too much. If he couldn't successfully open up the 12 meridians, then in this lifetime, he would never be able to surpass his previous life and return to his peak. But now, he has finally succeeded. He even reached a height that he had never reached in his previous life. In his previous life, he had only opened up 11 meridians before breaking through to the human realm. In this life, because he had the 9-star God Emperor art, he saw the hope of opening up the 12 meridians. And this hope has finally been realized today. Between great sorrow and great joy, Qin Chen felt light as a feather, wanting to fall asleep right there. But he knew that he must not sleep. He must strike while the iron is hot and condense his true energy. Even his severely injured body could only be restored later. The 9-star God Emperor art is the most mysterious technique I obtained from the forbidden land of the gods. Let me see what mysteries this technique holds. Qin Chen endured the drowsiness and circulated the mental cultivation formulas in the 9-star God Emperor art. As soon as he circulated it, a cool sensation instantly spread throughout his body, and his whole body suddenly jolted. The original drowsiness miraculously disappeared in an instant. Throughout the cultivation room, a large amount of heaven and earth energy seemed to be drawn by an invisible force, seeping into every pore of his body. The meridians and pores, which were originally dry of true energy, greedily absorbed the surrounding heaven and earth energy like a long-awaited rain after a drought. In just a moment, a trace of true energy had already appeared in Qin Chen's meridians. What a fast speed of true energy condensation! It's more than twice as fast as the heaven-grade cultivation technique I cultivated in my previous life, and the fact that all 12 meridians are absorbing at the same time, this speed is simply heaven-defying. Qin Chen was greatly shocked. As expected of the 9-star God Emperor art obtained from the forbidden land of the gods, the speed of condensing true energy alone surpassed all the techniques he had seen in his previous life. For a time, a large amount of heaven and earth energy poured into his body like a swarm of bees. Time passed. The true energy in Qin Chen's body continued to condense. The original pain slowly disappeared. After an unknown amount of time, Qin Chen felt himself instantly enter a mysterious realm, his mind completely empty. Then, he saw a simple and unadorned iron sword floating in his mind. Isn't this iron sword the one I obtained from the forbidden land of the gods? How could it? Back in the forbidden land of the gods, in addition to obtaining the 9-star God Emperor art, Qin Chen also obtained a palm-sized, simple and unadorned iron sword. After returning, he racked his brains but couldn't figure out the origin and function of this simple sword, so he put it in his storage bracelet. He didn't expect that this simple iron sword would come to 300 years later with him, and even enter his mind. My rebirth 300 years later may be related to this simple iron sword. Out of curiosity, Qin Chen activated his true energy, wanting to touch the small sword and see if he could activate it. Suddenly, there was a loud boom in his mind. Qin Chen's eardrums kept vibrating, and a terrifying and majestic force poured out from the small sword, like a raging flood, rushing along his thick meridians. The true energy that Qin Chen had worked so hard to condense was instantly dispersed. Qin Chen was horrified to find that this force was completely out of control. He quickly withdrew his consciousness, and the force instantly disappeared without a trace, as if it had never appeared. What exactly is going on? Qin Chen opened his eyes and woke up from that ethereal state. The scabs on his body fell off layer by layer, and Qin Chen was shocked to find that his previous severe injuries had actually healed. His whole person was like a reborn, his body crystal clear, fair as jade, like a newborn baby. Even the painful meridians in his body were smooth and full, returning to their peak state. What is the origin of this small sword? Why did it heal my originally severely injured body instantly just by releasing this force? Even healing holy medicine may not be able to achieve this, right? The small sword floated quietly in his mind, motionless, but it was mysterious and unpredictable. Moreover, Qin Chen had a doubt. The previous force was very peculiar, and seemed to be somewhat similar to the power of bloodlines from a deeper level. I'll find a way to figure out the origin of the small sword later. Qin Chen put aside his thoughts and fell into cultivation again. The absorption speed of the 9-star God Emperor art was indeed astonishing, and a large amount of heaven and earth energy poured into his body at all times. Gradually, the true energy in the first meridian was filled. The true energy in the second meridian was also slowly filled. Then came the third, the fourth. A full 3 days passed, and the true energy in Qin Chen's 12 meridians was finally filled again. The surging true energy was like raging dragons, roaring and flowing in the spacious and sturdy meridians, full of power. The true energy, which was several times greater than that of ordinary people, was like a surging river, surging in the paper. Ordinary martial artists would have been at a loss in the face of this situation. But Qin Chen, who was an 8th-order martial emperor in his previous life, controlled it skillfully and easily. The true energy is full. Next, I will condense the Qi Si again and impact the human realm. Only by stepping into the human realm again can his cultivation be considered complete. Break and then stand. Breaking has already been completed, and standing must also be completed. Under Qin Chen's powerful control, the true energy in the 12 meridians slowly flowed. At the beginning, this flow seemed gentle and soothing, like a winding river, but as Qin Chen continued to urge it, the true energy began to stir restlessly and boil, eventually turning into a rushing river, with a roar, rolling up waves, and constantly gathering in Qin Chen's dantian. That wild and surging true energy, roaring furiously, gathered continuously at Qin Chen's dantian, transforming into a turbulent vortex. At times like this, it was the most cautious moment for a martial artist, because once the true energy was out of control, the terrifying true energy would tear apart their own meridians, destroying the fragile dantian. Especially with the true energy within Qin Chen's body, whether in quantity or quality, being several times greater than that of a normal martial artist, the terrifying vortex formed was even more frightening. However, Qin Chen's face showed not the slightest worry. His control over true energy was too strong. He didn't need to deliberately do anything, he only needed to continuously push the true energy to its limit, letting them surge and pour out like a burst dam, charging and colliding, and then his rich experience from his previous life would instinctively use his body to control everything, allowing them to gather according to the rhythm Qin Chen wanted. After a moment, a chi pool formed within Qin Chen's body. This chi pool was the size of a duck egg, several times larger than Qin Chen's previous chi pool, which was the size of a pigeon egg. It was also more solid and full. But Qin Chen didn't stop. He forcefully urged the surging true energy, and the newly formed, fragile chi pool instantly shattered, turning into nothing. Qin Chen was not anxious at all. He condensed his true energy again, causing it to frantically gather in his dantian, forming a chi pool once more. This chi pool was even larger than the previous duck egg-sized chi pool, even more thick and astonishing. However, Qin Chen still shattered it once again. After repeating this 7 or 8 times, a chi pool the size of a fist finally condensed in Qin Chen's dantian. And this time, no matter how Qin Chen used his true energy to impact it, the chi pool remained unmoved. Only then was he satisfied, and he began to slowly strengthen the chi pool itself with true energy. The chi pool, far exceeding that of ordinary people, slowly stabilized, and with each rotation, it brought a shocking true energy, quickly spreading throughout every meridian in Qin Chen's body. Even the most powerful martial artist, upon seeing this scene, would probably have to admit that this was a near-perfect chi pool, with astonishing endurance, terrifying explosive power, and powerful capacity, completely comparable to an Earth-level martial artist. And what was unbelievable was that the one who formed this chi pool was actually just a beginner human-level martial artist. At this stage, only Qin Chen could achieve this. Because for a normal martial artist to achieve this level of control over true energy, they would have to reach the 7th level martial venerable stage to possess Qin Chen's current near-cheating control methods. After spending another day, Qin Chen broke through his cultivation to the mid-human level, and only then did he stop cultivating. Although Qin Chen's cultivation had only increased from the initial human level to the mid-human level after a few days and nights of hard training, only a small step, he had become completely different from himself a few days ago. It was no exaggeration to say that he had undergone a complete transformation. Boom! The door to the cultivation room opened, and Qin Chen walked out with a radiant expression under the envious gazes of the crowd. Lin Qian and Zhang Ying should have already left. The effect of this cultivation room is good, but the price is too expensive. Looking at the only dozens of silver coins left on his body, Qin Chen smiled wryly. The price of the cultivation room was 100 silver coins a day, and in a few days, the hundreds of silver coins he had accumulated were completely exhausted. Walking out of the cultivation tower, the outside was sunny and bright, and the fresh air was refreshing. Qin Chen frowned, however, and turned to look aside. A young man standing at the door saw Qin Chen, a trace of coldness flashed in his eyes, and he turned to leave. Qin Chen's figure flickered, blocking his path. A trace of panic flashed in the young man's eyes. What do you want to do? Why are you blocking my way? Shouldn't I be the one asking that? Who are you and why are you staring at me? Qin Chen squinted his eyes and said, Humph, Who's staring at you? You won't say. Qin Chen was too lazy to waste words, grabbed his neck, and lifted him up like a chick. You, let go of me. The young man's hands tightly grabbed Qin Chen's wrist, trying to pry it open, but Qin Chen's right hand was like an iron hoop. No matter how hard he tried, it wouldn't budge. Soon, the young man's face turned red, and he howled painfully like a drake, his body struggling violently. Speak, Qin Chen said coldly. I don't know what you're talking about. The young man was still resisting. Qin Chen increased his strength, the terrifying wrist strength tightly clamping the other party's throat, causing the chest cavity to contract violently due to lack of air. The cold gaze made the young man's heart chill. I'll speak. The young man finally surrendered. Bang! Qin Chen released his hand, threw the other party on the ground, and looked at him coldly. It was young Master Wei Zhen who asked me to keep an eye on you. He found Lin Qian and Zhang Ying, knew you were in the cultivation tower, so he asked me to guard outside the tower, and as soon as I saw you come out, I would notify him. The young man fell painfully to the ground, breathing heavily, his eyes full of fear as he looked at Qin Chen. He could guarantee that if he hadn't spoken just now, he would likely have been strangled to death by Qin Chen. It's him again. Qin Chen's eyes turned cold. Where are Lin Qian and Zhang Ying? Are they all right? I don't know, they were taken away by young Master Wei Zhen. What? Qin Chen said in a cold voice. Where is Wei Zhen now? At his own courtyard. I don't know anything, I'm only responsible for keeping an eye on you. Take me there immediately. Qin Chen's eyes were icy cold, his tone unprecedentedly stern. It seemed that the lesson he had given that guy a few days ago wasn't enough, and it hadn't even been 2 days before this guy had come knocking again, even taking Lin Qian and Zhang Ying away. I wonder how those two are now. Qin Chen felt a trace of worry in his heart. Under the young man's lead, Qin Chen arrived at the entrance of Wei Zhen's dormitory. It's here. The young man pointed to a courtyard in front and said. In addition to the multi-person dormitories prepared for commoners, Tianxing Academy also had some extremely high-end separate dormitories. These dormitories, like villas, even had their own gardens, with excellent privacy, all prepared for the sons and daughters of nobles in the royal capital. Just as Qin Chen looked up, the young man who led the way suddenly jumped up like a rabbit while Qin Chen wasn't paying attention, and rushed into the garden, while shouting, Brother Zhen, that kid is here, he's here. Qin Chen sneered and suddenly kicked a rock in front of him. With a snap, the fist-sized stone was instantly sent flying, crashing into the youth's back like a shooting star. With a thud, the youth immediately fell to the ground, landing face first in the dirt, his mouth full of blood, wailing in pain. A cold smile on his lips, Qin Chen slowly walked into the garden. The entire garden was empty, without a single person. Some flowers and plants were randomly planted, and the door to the front courtyard was ajar, a faint aura of danger lingering in Qin Chen's mind. Unfazed, Qin Chen pushed open the door and walked into the courtyard. Abruptly, whoosh, whoosh, 2 iron rods, one in front and one behind, suddenly attacked from behind the door, smashing towards the back of his head and his face respectively. The sound of the rods whistling carried astonishing power, clearly intended to kill. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw 2 youths hiding behind the door, their faces twisted with sinister smiles, the very same lackeys who followed Wei Zhen everywhere. And in the courtyard, Wei Zhen, his lower body wrapped in gauze, stared at Qin Chen with a ferocious expression, a venomous sneer hanging on his lips. Therefore, Qin Chen also smiled. At this critical moment, his body suddenly lowered, dodging the 2 iron rods just as they were about to hit him. Bang! The 2 iron rods collided in midair, the violent impact causing both of their hands to go numb, their tigers' mouths almost splitting open. Before they could steady themselves, Qin Chen, who had been crouching, suddenly attacked, striking left and right, his fists like iron hammers slamming into their chests. Ah! Bang! 2 terrifying impacts, accompanied by the clear sound of bones breaking, echoed out, and the 2 youths who had ambushed Qin Chen screamed as they flew backward, spitting out a large amount of blood in midair, before crashing heavily to the ground, directly fainting from the pain. Their chests were caved in, and they had no idea how many ribs were broken, their appearances utterly miserable. Wei Zhen, who had originally had a sinister smile on his face, suddenly froze, his eyes filled with shock, horror, and surprise, almost completely unable to believe his eyes. Wei Zhen, where are Lin Tian and Zhang Ying? Hand them over immediately, or you can forget about leaving here alive today. Qin Chen's expression was indifferent as he stepped forward, his cold gaze like a sharp blade falling on Wei Zhen's face, seeming to pierce through his body. Wei Zhen's eyes were dull, a hint of fear flowing within him, completely terrified by Qin Chen, even turning around to run and stumbled towards the house, unable to resist turning his head back and roaring, "Qin Chen, Lin Tian and Zhang Ying are in my house, come in if you dare." Inside the house, it was pitch black, a faint aura of danger emanating from within, as if some prehistoric beast was lurking, causing Qin Chen to frown slightly. Previously, although Wei Zhen's expression was terrified, there was a hidden hint of excitement deep in his eyes, indicating that there must be some kind of ambush in this house. But how could Qin Chen be intimidated by a mere ambush? With a cold smile, he walked in without any expression. The expected ambush did not occur. In the house, there was only a single figure, sitting cross-legged in the spacious hall. The bright sunlight shone in through the open door, making this person appear extremely tall. This was a man wearing a black robe, his appearance somewhat similar to Wei Zhen's, his chiseled face full of determination, like an ancient pagoda, standing tall in this place, exuding an extraordinary aura. "Brother, it's him. It's this Qin Chen. He injured me a few days ago." When Wei Zhen saw that Qin Chen actually dared to come in, he was both excited and furiously roared. "You useless fellow, what's the panic?" The black-robed youth slowly opened his eyes, shooting out two cold rays of light, calmly landing on Qin Chen's body. "You are Qin Chen. You are the one who injured Wei Zhen." The black-robed youth's first sentence was to question him, and although his tone was not very harsh, the accusatory intent within it was extremely strong, as if a high and mighty emperor was interrogating his subject. Qin Chen did not answer. His gaze, however, fell on a corner to the side of the black-robed youth, and suddenly shrank. Lin Tian and Zhang Ying were lying on the ground, their faces bruised and swollen, blood overflowing from the corners of their mouths, looking extremely disheveled. They had suffered who knows how much in the past 2 days, their bodies covered in blood, not a single part of their clothes intact. "Qin Chen, don't come over, run quickly, this guy is Wei Zhen's older brother, Wei Zhen." Lin Tian and Zhang Ying were awakened by the noise, opened their swollen eyes, and after seeing that it was Qin Chen, hurriedly shouted weakly. Due to their severe injuries, their voices were hoarse and extremely miserable. "What are you shouting for? Do you too want to die?" Wei Zhen angrily shouted, kicking them, causing them to groan in pain, their expressions extremely painful, but Wei Zhen laughed maniacally. Wei Zhen impatiently glanced at Wei Zhen, looking down on his actions. Qin Chen's gaze instantly solidified, a trace of icy coldness blooming from his body, the temperature of the entire room seeming to drop suddenly. Wei Zhen, however, did not take it seriously, coldly saying, "You also know my identity." Although Wei Zhen is useless, no matter what, he is still my younger brother. I don't want to be accused of bullying the weak. How about this? You kneel down now, kowtow and admit your mistakes, and then let Wei Zhen beat you up, and we'll call it even. I can let bygones be bygones and let the three of you leave. Wei Zhen was high and mighty, his expression indifferent, as if he was giving Qin Chen face. Qin Chen was so angry that he laughed instead. Where did this idiot get the idea to show off his superiority? Get lost. A loud shout suddenly exploded. Along with the angry shout, Qin Chen's figure suddenly moved, and he punched towards Wei Zhen. Boom! The force of the punch vibrated, and the gale howled. The terrifying power of the fist was like an angry dragon, instantly arriving in front of Wei Zhen. Seeing the miserable appearances of his two friends, Qin Chen was truly enraged this time. He knew that the person Wei Zhen wanted to deal with was actually himself. Lin Tian and Zhang Ying were just innocent. Feeling the terrifying force of the fist coming at him, Wei Zhen's face changed drastically. Before he could even react, the astonishing fist force had already arrived in front of him. In a moment of crisis, Wei Zhen only had time to put his fists in front of his chest, and Qin Chen's iron fist, which seemed capable of crushing everything, had already slammed down fiercely. Bang! It was as if a high mountain was suppressing down, the bones in Wei Zhen's arms creaking. The true chi that he hastily raised instantly shattered, and the next moment, Qin Chen's powerful force had already sent him flying. Boom! Bang! Wei Zhen crashed heavily into an ironwood table behind him, the hard and thick ironwood table instantly falling apart, wood chips flying everywhere, scattered all over the ground. You! Wei Zhen, who was at the side, was dumbfounded, pointing at Qin Chen with his hand, his whole body shaking like a sieve, his gaze terrified as if he was looking at a demon, his footsteps retreating, almost unable to stand. Qin Chen's eyes flashed with a cold light. Suddenly, he kicked out, sending him flying. Whoa! Spitting out a mouthful of fresh blood, Wei Zheng stumbled backward in a sorry state, flying several meters before rolling like a gourd and crashing violently against the wall. With a bang, the wall trembled, and bits of plaster fell. Wei Zheng, whose injuries from a few days ago had not yet healed, immediately let out a tragic howl of pain, his voice like a pig being slaughtered. Qin Chen went to Lin Qian and Zhang Ying's side, placing his hands on their wrists. Only after discovering that they only had muscle and bone damage and nothing else serious did he let out a sigh of relief. Lin Qian and Zhang Ying stared at Qin Chen, dumbfounded, once again astonished by the strength he displayed. Be careful. Suddenly, however, their expressions changed as a look of panic abruptly rose in their eyes, which were fixed on Qin Chen's back. Immediately after, a violent gust of wind, like Mount Tai pressing down, came from behind Qin Chen. Accompanying the wind was a terrifying, suffocating power that sealed off all positions around him. Little beast, I want you dead. Behind Qin Chen, Wei Zhen roared hoarsely, his face contorted in a vicious expression. He leaped high into the air, his clothes tattered, but his expression was more ferocious than ever, like a wounded beast. He lunged from behind Qin Chen in a sudden attack, his posture wild. HMPH. Qin Chen snorted coldly. At the critical moment, he suddenly turned and threw a punch. Bang! Two iron fists collided in the air, like a clap of thunder on a clear day. A terrifying hurricane roared and howled inside the room, finally surging outwards. The strong force shook all the furniture in the room violently, and things crashed to the floor everywhere. Amidst the violent wind, Qin Chen stood firm like a rock, unmoving. In contrast, Wei Zhen flew backward, landed on the ground, and then stumbled back 3 steps before stabilizing himself. What? Wei Zhen's eyes widened, his expression of shock and anger frozen on his face. He was clearly startled by Qin Chen's punch. He was a peak late-stage human rank martial artist, only 1 step away from stepping into the earth rank and becoming a true expert. Yet, just now, under his furious punch, Qin Chen had actually taken it head-on, and even seemed more relaxed than him. How is this possible? How is this possible? Wei Zhen stared intently at Qin Chen, speechless, his heart so shocked it was almost going mad. Big brother he. Wei Zheng, who had seen his big brother launch the attack, was originally also agitated, his eyes fixed on Qin Chen with venom, waiting to see how his big brother would teach him a lesson. But the result completely stunned him. How can this little beast be so strong? Just over 10 days ago, he had severely beaten Qin Chen on the dueling platform, almost beating him to death. Yet, in less than half a month, Qin Chen was actually able to contend head-on with his big brother, a peak late-stage human rank martial artist. This drastic change in strength was something Wei Zheng found hard to accept. You want to revenge your brother? Just a piece of trash, do you really think you're someone important? Qin Chen's gaze was sharp. He slowly stepped forward, his eyes filled with disdain and mockery, looking down at Wei Zhen before him with a superior gaze. After reconstructing his meridians, Qin Chen had opened an unprecedented 12 meridians. In this remote land of the Great Qi Kingdom, his foundation far surpassed any so-called genius. The terrifying power of the 9-star God Emperor art allowed Qin Chen, without relying on his past life's experience and techniques, to be stronger than Wei Zhen, who was only 1 rank higher than him, purely in terms of strength. Inside the room, the The calmness and composure in Wei Zhen's eyes disappeared, replaced by extreme humiliation and unprecedented anger. The intense humiliation caused his blood to boil and smoke to rise from his 7 orifices. Little mongrel, just because you broke through to the mid-stage human rank and blocked one of my punches, you think you have the right to talk to me. Today, I will let you know that the difference between you and me is an insurmountable chasm. Wei Zhen shook his fists, his clothes billowing. He held his fists horizontally before his chest. In an instant, an inexplicable aura swept out from his body. A thick, heavy aura, like a mountain, emanated from Wei Zhen, causing Wei Zheng, who was lying on the ground and hiding in the distance, to feel incredibly suppressed and instinctively want to retreat. Good. Big Brother has not only reached the peak of the late-stage human rank in cultivation but has also studied a large number of martial techniques, especially cultivating the top-tier Earth Grade 5 Peaks Divine Fist to its extreme. With this kind of aura, he can probably even contend with Earth rank experts. He was just careless before. As long as he gets serious, dealing with this Qin Chen will definitely be effortless. Wei Zheng trembled with excitement, even forgetting the pain in his body. His eyes repeatedly shot out venomous gazes like poisonous snakes. The 5 peaks are the 5 most majestic mountains in the Great Qi Kingdom, towering and possessing a heaven-reaching presence. The 5 Peaks Divine Fist is named after them. 5 Peaks Divine Fist, Mount Tai pressing down. Wei Zhen roared and violently swung his fists forward. In a trance, everyone felt as if a massive mountain range appeared before Wei Zhen's fists, rumbling forward. Under the impact of this powerful, heavy fist intent, strong winds surged throughout the room, and furniture and tables clattered. Ha! A roar, like thunder, boomed. Rolling true energy scattered everything around. All the tables and chairs instantly exploded into pieces, and the ground itself cracked, making crunching sounds. The terrifying power, along with the hurricane, surged towards Qin Chen like a collapsing mountain and overturning sea. Cracks appeared on the bluestone floor inside the room, rapidly shattering. The air continuously boomed, as if the end of the world had arrived. HMPH. Mere child's play, break. Qin Chen snorted coldly, stepping forward. His body was as solid as a mountain. He watched Wei Zhen's attack with indifference. Just before the fist's might arrived, he suddenly threw a punch. This punch was not particularly flashy. There was no explosive hurricane, no rumbling sound. It simply and uneventfully slammed into Wei Zhen's surging fist energy. Boom! Like a sudden clap of thunder on a clear day, it deafened everyone's ears and made their minds buzz, almost causing them to vomit blood. Wei Zhen's roar still echoed in the room, but the outcome of their exchange had already been decided. With an earth-shattering explosion, Wei Zhen's sturdy body flew backward like a kite with a broken string from the howling wind, crashing heavily against the wall. How could this happen? Wei Zhen roared, his eyes wide open, filled with extreme unwillingness. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. At this moment, his heart was truly like dead ash. If their first exchange was merely a contest of strength, evenly matched, this time, he had pushed his true energy to the extreme and unleashed his most powerful set of martial techniques. Yet, he was still defeated. Qin Chen's attack seemed ordinary, but in reality, it directly struck the weakest point of his attack, instantly shattering his martial technique and defeating him. Lost. Big Brother actually lost. Not far away, Wei Zheng was dumbfounded, his heart trembling. He felt a chill run from his tailbone straight to the top of his head. He was scared out of his wits and terrified. Having struck successfully, Qin Chen did not stop. His body was as straight as a spear. He stepped forward, his gaze coldly fixed on Wei Zhen. You. What do you want? Wei Zhen's face changed drastically, but he saw Qin Chen suddenly raise his hand and slap him in the face. Wei Zhen was shocked and wanted to resist, but Qin Chen's slap was too fast. Before he could even raise his hand, the palm carrying true energy had already slammed heavily into his face. Pa! With a crisp sound, Wei Zhen was directly slapped away by Qin Chen. Fresh blood mixed with teeth splattered in the air, and the whole person was like a rag doll, falling to the ground with a thud. Half of his face was swollen high, turning bluish purple, and he howled in pain. Seeing such an astonishing scene, Wei Zhen, who was on the side, was so frightened that his legs became weak and his whole body felt cold. He only wanted to rush out of the house. However, Qin Chen's standing position happened to block his escape route. You little bastard, do you know who I am? How dare you hit me like this? You're dead. You know. You're dead. Wei Zhen struggled to support himself, roaring angrily. His eyes were blood red, and he looked like a wounded and mad beast, his face twisted and terrifying, making people feel cold. Anger. Great anger. Unprecedented anger. Since childhood, when had Wei Zhen been humiliated like this? A strong sense of humiliation filled his chest, blurring his vision, making him eager to kill Qin Chen on the spot. But what responded to him was Qin Chen's flying kick. Crack. Wei Zhen's chin was directly dislocated, and blood mixed with saliva splattered everywhere. Wei Zhen fell to the ground with a thud, his head aching and his body convulsing violently. You're called Wei Zhen. I warn you, don't provoke me. I'll give you a chance this time. If there is a next time, I promise, I will kill you. Qin Chen came to Wei Zhen's side and looked down at Wei Zhen with a condescending gaze. The essence, energy, and spirit of his whole body were concentrated in his eyes, and he glared fiercely at Wei Zhen. Boom! Wei Zhen felt that his brain suddenly went blank, and a huge shadow of death instantly enveloped him. Qin Chen's eyes were like two sharp swords, piercing fiercely into his heart. Ah! Wei Zhen let out an extremely frightened scream, and an unprecedented fear rose from the depths of his heart. At this moment, he seemed to be in the Nine-Nether Hell, suffering endless torture. A patch of water instantly appeared on Wei Zhen's pants. The hot and humid feeling awakened him. He was actually frightened into incontinence by Qin Chen's glare. For Wei Zhen, who had always thought highly of himself, this was even more humiliating than killing him. Bang! A kick slammed into Wei Zhen's dantian. Wei Zhen screamed, and immediately fainted. Wei Zhen, who was on the side, was already scared silly at this time. His face was pale, knowing that something bad was going to happen. He couldn't care about anything else, and rushed towards the door of the house next to Qin Chen frantically. At this moment, there was only one thought in his mind, and that was to escape from here, to escape from this devilish guy. Want to escape now? It's too late. Qin Chen's eyes turned cold, and he punched out. With a bang, Wei Zhen was undoubtedly knocked back and fell heavily to the ground. Da, da, da. The sound of footsteps, like the god of death, gradually approached Wei Zhen. Wei Zhen ignored the severe pain all over his body, hurriedly climbed up, knelt on the ground, looked at Qin Chen in horror, and repeatedly begged, Qin Chen, no, no, young Master Chen, please, let me go. I won't dare anymore. I won't dare anymore in the future. I'm just a beast, please let me go. Wrong. You're not even as good as a beast. Qin Chen's eyes turned cold, and he kicked out fiercely. Wei Zhen didn't have time to resist at all, and was kicked in the dantian by Qin Chen. The whole person flew out, and then the strong body fell to the ground with a bang, his eyes rolled over, and he also fainted. Qin Chen smiled coldly. Although he didn't kill the two, their dantians had already been injured by Qin Chen's true energy. After the two woke up, they wouldn't feel anything, but their cultivation in this life would never be able to advance any further. Only then did Qin Chen come to Lin Tian and Zhang Ying's side, helped him up, and massaged him a few times. Lin Tian and Zhang Ying immediately felt a warm current flowing in their bodies. Their originally painful bodies actually felt much more comfortable, and some of the red and swollen areas also subsided a lot. Young Master Chen, you really are. The two were dumbfounded. Seeing the whole process, they were completely confused by Qin Chen's methods, only feeling incomparably shocked, somewhat dazed, and at a loss. You guys go back and recuperate first. These two guys shouldn't dare to cause trouble again. Qin Chen said lightly. He felt a little guilty towards the two of them. If it wasn't for him, Lin Tian and Zhang Ying wouldn't have been targeted by Wei Zhen. We're fine, but young Master Chen, you taught him a lesson, I'm afraid, Lin Tian and Zhang Ying both said worriedly. At this time, they were still worried about Qin Chen. Wei Zhen was only the second son of Marquis Wei Qi, but Wei Zhen was the heir of Marquis Wei Qi's mansion. Now that Qin Chen had taught Wei Zhen such a miserable lesson, once Marquis Wei Qi came to Marquis Anping, Qin Chen's situation would inevitably be very dangerous. I'm fine, you two can rest assured. Qin Chen felt a little warm in his heart. Who said that everyone in this world is treacherous? Qin Chen's heart, which was hurt by Feng Xiaoyu in his previous life, couldn't help but warm up a little. I have 2 sets of formulas here, you can go back and practice them. Qin Chen glanced at the two's cultivation, both of which were stuck at the peak of the initial stage of the human level. His heart moved, and he taught the two a formula. Young Master Chen, what is this? You'll know when you go back and practice. Qin Chen sighed secretly in his heart. Even if he was betrayed by Feng Xiaoyu in his previous life, in this life, he still believed in friendship. He hoped that this time, he wouldn't misjudge. This formula was something he came up with casually. For Qin Chen, it was nothing at all, and it was not precious. After sending Lin Tian and Zhang Ying away, Qin Chen walked all the way back to the mansion, thinking about things along the way. He didn't consider the impact of hitting Wei Zhen and Wei Zhen at all. For him, it wasn't a big deal at all. What he was considering was his future cultivation. With the successful reconstruction of his meridians, Qin Chen's cultivation began to enter the right track. However, martial arts requires a lot of resources, especially Qin Chen, who has cultivated the 9-star God Emperor art. The resources required for each stage are several times, or even 10 times, that of ordinary martial artists. This is an extremely large number. As the saying goes, money is not omnipotent, but a martial artist cannot do without money. And Qin Chen is now facing a shortage of money. In the past, his martial arts funds came from Qin Yuqi, but Qin Yuqi's situation in the Qin family was not good, so the support she could give him was not much. I must find a way to make some money. Thinking about how to make money, Qin Chen unknowingly walked to the Qin family mansion. Young Master Chen. The two guards at the door immediately saluted respectfully when they saw Qin Chen, but a strange look appeared in their eyes, as if something had happened. Qin Chen was slightly surprised, but he didn't think much about it and stepped into the mansion. Before he had walked far, a fragrant breeze suddenly blew, and a tall girl in a red dress instantly appeared in front of Qin Chen. The girl was about 18 or 19 years old. Although she was not very old, she was extremely beautiful. Her long black hair was scattered, and under her bright beautiful eyes was a pointed nose and red lips. Her fair skin that could be broken by blowing gave people a youthful atmosphere. Qin Chen, you actually dare to come back. Hurry up and go out to avoid the limelight. Grandpa has been looking for you for a long time. The girl saw Qin Chen and said hurriedly, with a look of anxiety on her face. Sister Ying, what's wrong? Qin Chen frowned slightly. The person who came was Qin Chen's cousin, Qin Yuanzi's daughter, Qin Ying. In the Qin family, the second uncle was the only one who was kind to Qin Yuqi and Qin Chen, and Qin Ying was also very friendly to him. When they were young, Qin Feng and Qin Fen often bullied Qin Chen. Every time, Qin Ying helped him, so that Qin Chen could live a slightly more comfortable life in the Qin family. At this moment, Qin Ying's face was filled with a trace of anxious blame, and she said, "You still ask what's wrong? A few days ago, did you go to the artifact hall?" Yes. Qin Chen was slightly stunned, and then said in a cold voice, "Could it be that Liang Yu came to the Qin family to question me?" A trace of anger flashed in his eyes. Although he asked Liang Yu to refine the heavenly meridian divine needle, he also removed Liang Yu's charm poison. Not only did he not offend him, but he also did him a favor. If this guy really came to the Qin family to question him, how could he let him off easily? You actually offended Grandmaster Liang Yu. Hearing Qin Chen's words, Qin Ying opened her eyes wide, her face full of disbelief. What did he say? Grandmaster Liang Yu didn't come, but Qin Fen said that you offended Grandmaster Liang Yu in the artifact hall, which caused him to be beaten and scolded, and even the black obsidian stone for refining treasures was lost. I didn't believe it at first, but I didn't expect it to be true. You. Alas, what should I say about you? Qin Ying looked angry, with an expression of hating that iron cannot become steel. Grandpa is looking for you everywhere now, saying that as soon as you go back, he will immediately take you to task. You should go out and avoid the limelight. Although Qin Ying was angry, she was worried about Qin Chen from the bottom of her heart. So it was that guy Qin Fen. What does it have to do with me that he lost the black obsidian stone? Qin Chen sneered, and suddenly, he thought of something, and his face changed. How is my mother? Don't worry, Auntie is fine, but you. Before Qin Ying could finish her words, two teams of guards suddenly rushed out from the side, with bright swords and spears, and came to Qin Chen. The leader, a black armored guard, was nearly 40 years old, with a strong aura, and said coldly, "Young Master Chen, the head of the family is holding a clan meeting. Please come with us." Two teams of guards stood on both sides of Qin Chen, surrounding him, obviously to prevent him from escaping. Seeing this, Qin Ying immediately said angrily, "Qin Gang, what are you doing?" Qin Gang is the captain of the Qin family's guards, a heaven-level expert. His ancestors were servants of the Qin family, so he was granted the Qin surname. He respectfully said to Qin Ying, "Miss Ying, this is the order of the head of the family. We are only acting on orders." Qin Ying wanted to say something, but Qin Chen gently stopped her. He glanced at Qin Gang coldly and said calmly, "Where is my mother?" "The eldest lady is already in the council hall." Qin Gang was stabbed by Qin Chen's gaze, and he couldn't help but lower his head, and he was shocked by his actions. "Lead the way ahead," Qin Chen said lightly, but sneered in his heart. It seemed that the Qin family was well prepared. As soon as he came back, before he had taken a few steps, Qin Gang arrived, and his mother had already been taken to the council hall. Were they going to take the opportunity to attack him? "Young Master Chen, please move." The group quickly took Qin Chen towards the council hall. Qin Ying stomped her feet fiercely and chased after her with a look of anxiety. In the Qin family's largest council hall, people were crowded, and hundreds of people gathered together. The atmosphere was oppressive and suffocating. Qin Yuansheng sat in the position of the head of the family, high above, and beside him were the many elders, stewards, and outstanding direct descendants of the Qin family. Qin Fen stood beside Zhao Feng, his expression indifferent, and his eyes flashed with a gloomy light. After being driven out of the artifact hall that day, he returned home as soon as possible and complained to his mother, Zhao Feng, adding fuel to the fire. After learning that her son was taught and scolded by Liang Yu in the artifact hall because of Qin Chen, Zhao Feng was immediately furious and immediately found Qin Yuansheng to cry and complain, saying that she wanted to drive Qin Chen, this little brute, out of the house, making the entire Qin mansion a mess. Although Qin Yuansheng was extremely annoyed by Zhao Feng's behavior, he couldn't help but feel annoyed when he learned that the black obsidian stone he had just auctioned off had been lost. But he knew his son's virtue very well, and immediately sent someone to the artifact hall to visit Grandmaster Liang Yu, wanting to understand the truth. Unexpectedly, when Liang Yu learned that it was someone from the Qin family, he didn't even want to see them, and even directly sent someone to drive the Qin family out. When the news came back, Zhao Feng immediately seized the handle. Thinking that she was in the right, she immediately clamored to expel Qin Chen from the family. Qin Chen is so young, yet he offended Grandmaster Liang Yu and brought such a big trouble to the family. If such behavior is not expelled, how will the family survive in the capital in the future? In fact, although Liang Yu is an artifact refinement grandmaster of the artifact hall, and his status is noble, and many dignitaries in the capital want to curry favor with him, he is just an artifact refinement grandmaster after all. The Qin family's old man, Qin Baishan, is the Dingwu king, the commander-in-chief of the 500,000-strong army on the border of the Great Qi Kingdom. His military exploits are illustrious and his reputation is far-reaching. It is not enough to cause the Qin family to be unable to survive in the capital because he offended an artifact refinement grandmaster. Besides, the artifact hall is not only Liang Yu, an artifact refinement grandmaster. If you offend Liang Yu, the Qin family may not be able to befriend other artifact refinement grandmasters. But in Zhao Feng's eyes, this is a good opportunity to drive out the Qin family's mother and son. How could she not take advantage of it? Therefore, relying on her management of the Qin family for more than 20 years, Zhao Feng, the mistress of the Qin family, instigated several family elders and directly brought the matter to Qin Yuansheng, putting pressure on Qin Yuansheng and convening a family meeting. Qin Yuansheng was furious, but in the end, he accepted the proposal of several elders. offending the artifact hall master and bringing disaster to the Qin family. This reason is not unreasonable. Although it is not as upright as being expelled from Tianxing Academy, at least he has a reason in front of the old man, so as not to be completely passive. Considering these things, Qin Yuansheng also acquiesced to Zhao Feng's actions, which led to this scene today. At this time, Zhao Feng sat in the position in front of the main hall, with a sneer on her lips, staring coldly at Qin Yuqi below, wanting to see a trace of panic in her eyes. She has been unhappy with Qin Yuqi for more than a day or two. This woman is always so noble and elegant in front of her, and even when she embarrasses her, she always has that calm expression, which makes Zhao Feng feel resentful. A lowly woman, why pretend to be noble in front of me? Zhao Feng thought in her heart. Even now, Qin Yuqi, with her head lowered, still maintained a calm expression. Although she was dressed plainly and without makeup, she remained the most dazzling presence in the entire hall. Anyone who saw her couldn't help but sigh in admiration. What a captivating beauty. She seemed born to be a femme fatale, capable of attracting the gazes of all men. This was precisely what Zhao Feng found most irritating. HMPH. Let's see how high and mighty you can act. When your precious son arrives, let's see if you can still remain so composed. Thinking this, Zhao Feng couldn't help but smile sinisterly, eagerly anticipating the scene that would unfold. At this moment, Qin Yuqi's gaze was calm as she sat quietly in the hall, so elegant, so serene. However, her hands, tightly clutching the hem of her dress, still revealed the anxiety in her heart, her worry for Qin Chen. Offending the weaponry hall's master craftsman, how could Chen be so foolish? Although Qin Yuqi didn't know exactly what had happened, she understood Qin Yuansheng very well. If he didn't have solid evidence, he certainly wouldn't have agreed to the elder's request and created such a big scene. Looking at the excited and angry expressions of Zhao Feng, Qin Fen, and the Qin family's elders, Qin Yuqi's heart had grown completely cold towards the Qin family. This family truly no longer held any reason for her to stay. Her heart was as cold as iron. Meanwhile, Zhao Feng, upon seeing Qin Yuqi's indifferent gaze, was instantly enraged. Qin Yuqi, have you no shame? Your bastard son has brought such a great disaster upon the Qin family, yet you remain unmoved. If I had known this little beast was so capable of causing trouble, I would have drowned him in a pig cage long ago. A Qin family elder coldly snorted and angrily said, "Where is Qin Chen? Why hasn't Qin Gang brought that little beast back yet?" Qin Yuqi raised her head and looked calmly at Zhao Feng. A hint of mocking coldness suddenly appeared at the corner of her lips. Her gaze swept coldly across the many elders present, and she mocked, "My son is a little beast, then what are you? Aren't you all old beasts? You." Zhao Feng and the elders trembled with anger. "Qin Yuqi, how dare you speak to this old man like that? I am your elder, you shameless woman." The old man was so angry that his hair stood on end. He was Qin Yuqi's third uncle and could be considered an elder of the family with a rather high status. Qin Yuqi glanced coldly at him, her beautiful eyes clouded with a layer of mist, but a stubborn smile appeared on her face, neither affirming nor denying. These people of the Qin family disliked her from the moment she returned, and now they were cursing Chen. They even expected her to respect them. It was simply wishful thinking. Qin Yuqi had long since completely seen through this group of people in the Qin family. The old man, seeing that Qin Yuqi didn't even look at him, grew even angrier and roared, "Qin Yuqi, I'm asking you a question." At this moment, a middle-aged man beside Qin Yuansheng spoke up, "Third uncle, calm your anger. Third sister is also worried about Qin Chen. Please don't hold it against her." This person was Qin Ying's father, Qin Yuqi's second brother, Qin Yuanzi. Within the entire Qin family, besides the old master Qin Baishan, Qin Yuanzi was the only one who still took care of Qin Yuqi's family. Am I holding it against her? If she hadn't eloped back then, how could our Qin family have become the laughingstock of the great Qi kingdom? The old man's chest heaved with anger, and he glared with his beard bristling. Qin Yuanzi smiled wryly and was about to say something when suddenly, a series of messy footsteps came from outside the door, and the door of the council hall was suddenly pushed open. Everyone looked up and saw Qin Gang and a group of guards leading a young man in. The young man walked in the middle of the guards, his steps steady, his expression calm, and his eyebrows filled with heroic spirit. His demeanor made it seem as if Qin Gang, who was escorting him, was his guard, giving off a strange sense of composure. Behind Qin Chen, Qin Ying also followed the guards in, shaking her head at Qin Yuanzi with a wry smile. Qin Yuanzi sighed. He had his daughter guard the door to allow Qin Chen to avoid the limelight, but he didn't expect Qin Gang to still bring Qin Chen over. This was troublesome. He glanced at Qin Yuansheng, and Qin Yuanzi didn't know how to feel. He knew how proud his eldest brother was. If third sister hadn't left without permission and instead married into the imperial palace, the status of the emperor's brother-in-law would have been enough to allow eldest brother to advance further in the court. Being granted the title of duke and establishing his own mansion wouldn't have been impossible. Later, these expectations turned into bubbles with Qin Yuqi bringing back Qin Chen. Over the years, eldest brother had always resented this matter and never let it go. The family elder's dissatisfaction with Qin Yuqi was also due to this. Inside the council hall, after Qin Chen walked in, he first looked at Qin Yuqi. After discovering that his mother hadn't suffered any harm, he slightly relaxed. He raised his head and scrutinized the people at the head of the hall. Among these people, some were familiar to Qin Chen, and some were unfamiliar to him, but the only feeling Qin Chen had was indifference. It was as if this Qin family's council hall was not a place for family matters, but a torture chamber for interrogating prisoners. Qin Chen, why haven't you knelt down upon seeing the family head? An elder, seeing Qin Chen's composed appearance, flew into a rage. Qin Chen glanced at the other party and said, "Family head, who here is the family head?" The elder slammed the armrest of his chair and angrily said, "Impudence. Of course, it's the Qin Yuansheng family head." Ha ha. Qin Chen laughed and said, "I remember this mansion should be the Dingwu prince's residence, right? When did it become the Anping marquis's residence? Could it be that I remembered wrong? Impudence. Audacious." Several elders instantly flew into a rage and angrily shouted. Even Qin Yuansheng, who had been maintaining a cold demeanor from beginning to end while sitting in the head seat, now frowned and a cold glint flashed in his eyes. Zhao Feng secretly rejoiced in her heart and shouted sharply, "Family head, elders, you've all seen it. This little beast is lawless. Now he doesn't even acknowledge the family head. Keeping such a fellow in our Qin family is simply a scourge." Qin Yuansheng looked coldly at Qin Chen and said, "Qin Chen, the reason we've called you here this time is regarding the matter of Master Liang Yu. Speak. How did you offend Master Liang Yu in the weaponry hall?" "I have nothing to say. HMPH. I knew this little beast would play dumb." Zhao Feng said sharply, "Fener, tell the elders in detail how this little beast offended Master Liang Yu." Qin Fen immediately walked out from the crowd, glanced at Qin Chen with a sinister look, and said loudly, "Elders, a few days ago, I took the black obsidian stone, which my father had spent a lot of money to bid for at the auction, to the weaponry hall to find Master Liang Yu to forge a treasured weapon. At that time, Master Liang Yu had already agreed to my request, but this Qin Chen insisted on angering Master Liang Yu." Qin Fen embellished the story, recounting the events of that time, pinning blame after blame on Qin Chen. Finally, he said, "If it weren't for this Qin Chen, how could our Qin family have offended Master Liang Yu, leading to the loss of so many treasures? If this continues, I fear that in the future, even when our Qin family wants to conduct business at the artifact forging hall, we will be deliberately made difficult." Qin Chen stood in the hall, feeling the gazes from all directions and watching Qin Fen's performance, a cold smile in his heart. Those things, including the dark obsidian stone, amount to a loss of only 70,000 silver coins. To the Qin family, it's just a drop in the bucket, yet they act as if I've bankrupted them. Utterly laughable. One of the elders coldly said, "Qin Chen, do you have anything to say?" This person was the second elder of the Qin family, and could be considered Qin Yuansheng's uncle. If Qin Yuqi had become a princess back then, he could have obtained an official position in the court. Now, due to Qin Yuqi's elopement, he was idly at home, and could be said to hate them, mother and son, to the core. Qin Chen was too lazy to say anything, and said indifferently, I have nothing to say. HMPH, you little beast, even now, you don't show the slightest sign of repentance. Do you even have the Qin family in your eyes? An elder slammed the table and angrily said to Qin Yuansheng, Patriarch, I propose expelling this little beast from the Qin mansion to prevent him from bringing more disasters to our Qin family. Patriarch, I agree. This little beast is lawless. If he isn't expelled, our Qin family will suffer a great loss sooner or later. An ungrateful wretch. Several elders and stewards of the Qin family shouted and recommended the expulsion. Zhao Feng smiled sinisterly in her heart. These elders and stewards had already discussed it with her. This time, they wanted to drive the Qin family mother and son out of the family to see how they would survive this ordeal. Esteemed elders, this may not be appropriate. Qin Yuanzi's expression changed, and he quickly said, expulsion from the family is a major matter. At least we should wait for the old master to return before making a decision. HMPH, Qin Yuanzi, the old master is currently stationed at the border, fighting with the Zhao kingdom. He won't be able to return for 3 to 5 years. By the time he returns, how long will we have to wait? That's right. Special circumstances require special measures. This little beast Qin Chen is so young, yet he has already offended Master Liang Yu. I heard that he also angered Prince Qi before. In another 2 years, wouldn't he even offend the emperor? Our Qin family has produced such a degenerate, it's simply scandalous and morally corrupt. Several elders of Qin Yuanzi's uncle generation coldly shouted. The elders, all old men with graying beards and wrinkles covering their faces, looked at Qin Chen with eyes as cold and sharp as knives, filled with indifference, as if they were looking at an enemy of the Qin family, not a member of it. Qin Yuanzi smiled bitterly in his heart, and looked at Qin Yuansheng, saying, Brother. Qin Yuansheng waved his hand, then looked at Qin Chen coldly, and said, Qin Chen, without rules, there can be no order. The reason why our Qin family has been able to rise in the Great Qi Kingdom is because of our strict family rules. However, you are, after all, my nephew. I will give you one last chance to explain. Patriarch, why let him explain? The facts are all there. Just expel him directly. Anyway, he hasn't been registered in the family records, so he can't be considered a member of our Qin family. Our Qin family has been supporting him for so many years, letting him eat and drink for free. We've already been kind enough to him. One elder after another spoke, never expecting the patriarch to let this little beast explain. What was there to explain? Looking at these gazes that wished they could devour him, Qin Chen smiled indifferently. Since you all want me to leave the Qin family so much, then I'll just leave. Why bother with all this pretense? Do you really think I care? Qin Chen. Qin Yuanzi shouted, a look of anxiety appearing in his eyes, and he hurriedly looked at Qin Yuqi. He saw Qin Yuqi's stubborn face, with a desolate expression, coldly watching everything in the hall. Zhao Feng, as if she had found a handle, jumped up and pointed at Qin Chen, shouting shrilly, esteemed elders, you have all heard it. Look at what this little beast is saying. Does he even have our Qin family in his eyes? Ha ha ha, you all said it before. Since I'm not a member of the Qin family, why should I care about your thoughts? Qin Chen said with a cold smile, disdainfully, the Qin family, bah. I have never been a member of the Qin family, nor have I ever wanted to become one. Don't impose your wishful thinking on me. You. How dare you? The elders were so angered by Qin Chen's words that they almost fainted. Their faces turned pale, and their bodies trembled with anger. How dare I? Ha ha, how would I dare? You are all famous figures of the Qin family. I am so humble, how would I dare to be presumptuous in front of you? Over the years, from top to bottom, has anyone in your Qin family ever truly treated my mother and me as human beings? My mother is the eldest daughter of the Qin family, your closest relative. But look at you, how have you treated her all these years? It's one thing for outsiders to bully her, but you actually bully her too, bullying a weak woman. Don't you feel ashamed? Don't you feel disgraced? Let's talk about you, Zhao Feng. You usually make things difficult for my mother in every way. A few days ago, I was seriously injured and on the verge of death. My mother knelt in front of your door all night to beg for a rejuvenation pill. That's fine, but you actually wanted her to flatter Prince Qi. Zhao Qirui, that dog, don't you know his character? That beastly thing, you actually wanted my mother to see him. You are clearly pushing my mother into a fire pit. Qin Chen's roaring voice echoed in the hall, deafening and penetrating, like a knife or sword, filled with anger, stabbing everyone's bodies, shocking their hearts. The hall was deathly silent. Except for Qin Yuanzi, who had just returned yesterday and was unaware of the situation, the faces of all the elders and stewards were extremely ugly, because they knew that what Qin Chen said was true. A rejuvenation pill is just a mere second-grade pill, and my mother is the eldest daughter of the Qin family, the eldest daughter of the Qin family. She is your dear sister, dear aunt, dear niece, dear niece. Your closest relative, yet you let her be repeatedly humiliated by that bitch Xiaofeng for a rejuvenation pill. Has anyone cared? Have you treated us like human beings? Now you're here talking to me about being a member of the Qin family. Bah! I was never a member of the Qin family to begin with, and you shouldn't use the Qin family's rules to restrain me. Qin Chen's voice was cold, echoing in the hall for a long time. That sharp tone, that murderous gaze, shook everyone's hearts, leaving them speechless for a long time. You, look at this little beast, lawless, simply lawless. Zhao Feng shouted shrilly, hysterically, her eyes as venomous as a snake. Brother, what exactly is going on? Qin Yuanzi looked at Qin Yuansheng and asked sternly. He was responsible for the Qin family's business in various parts of the Great Qi Kingdom and was often not in the Qin family. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been unaware of this matter.